might have been the Maury Terry show, where you guys, someone mentioned that George Lucas bought the base or something like that.
George Lucas bought the Presidio military base with all those underground
Right,
tunnels and all that stuff.
So that's Disney. So Disney right now, and it's probably in a couple years that Disney's going to come out with the new Marvel movie, Civil War. Which is kind of interesting, as the whole meme of Civil War is kind of seems like the same issues are being resurrected now. You know, the Confederacy and race issues and that kind of thing, kind of sparked off with shootings in Waco, shootings here in Texas, and all that. And just kind of a weird meme going on there. So what I was thinking was that all this is kind of connected to, you know, people like Courtney Love that might be in the media and stuff that also have talents to, you know, who knows what. I think some articles have come out recently discussing how Corey Feldman and these different celebrities are coming out speaking about this, what happens behind the scenes and stuff. And it just seems like if they need to put out some kind of a show, they have their puppets to, there's another movie coming out called Regression that's coming out soon with Ethan Hawke, and it deals with satanic ritual abuse. And I'm wondering if they're going to kind of whitewash the whole thing, give it like this whole, the victim is making it all in their minds, plot twist to it, and just kind of whitewash it, or if they'll give it this true detective kind of undertones to it. You know, it's just, I wonder how they're going to continue the memes in the media and stuff like that.
Yeah, I hear you, man. The whole Corey Feldman thing, you know, I'm trying to get him to come on the show. You know, when he talks about the guy who molested him, you know, he said it started in that movie, Lucas was the first one. And that the guy who molested him was this big fan, and now is so powerful now in Hollywood that he can't be touched. You know? So you got to wonder, who else was in that movie? You know, one guy was Charlie Sheen, and the other one was that guy who plays Ari on the Entourage. You know, those are the only two people who came out of that movie. That are huge. Right. But now, if you look at Denise Richards, in her lawsuit and her divorce against Charlie Sheen, and she gets like $50,000 a month, you know, or $75,000 a month in child support, and he's not allowed to see those kids at all. He doesn't see those kids alone. Did you know that? He's never alone with his kids. You know, she has full custody of those kids, and the only time he sees those kids, she's with him. Okay, and in her divorce papers, this is publicly filed divorce papers, it says in these papers that she found child porn on his computer and that he had a huge interest in child pornography.
Charlie Sheen?
This is what Denise Richards says. Now, Denise Richards, by the way, has her own interesting background. Many people allege, and I believe these many people, that she was one of Heidi Fleiss's girls. And that's how she met Charlie Sheen. Okay? So, and that's out there. Okay, I'm not the one saying that. That's information that's out there that other people say. So, very fascinating. You guys know my interaction with Charlie Sheen was through my client Capri Anderson, who was the girl who he attacked and locked in a hotel bathroom at the Plaza Hotel, Donald Trump's hotel, okay, in New York City. And when the police showed up, because, you know, this girl called her friend to get her out of trouble there, my client Capri, when the police showed up, what is not widely reported in the papers is that Charlie Sheen, who, by the way, was on probation, had just pled guilty to pulling a knife on his wife, I forget her name, in Colorado there, you know, was arrested for that, you know, convicted of that, pulling his knife. I think it was Thanksgiving night.
Wasn't it around Christmas? Or Thanksgiving, right?
Well, Thanksgiving or Christmas, whatever. But he pulled a knife on his wife. You know, and was holding a knife to her. She got arrested for that, got convicted for that. When the cops showed up to that hotel in New York City, Charlie Sheen was naked and covered in blood. Okay? Because he was breaking glass all over that hotel room. They broke mirrors, he broke tables, he broke lamps, and covered in his own blood. Okay? Now, anybody else, man, cops show up. You're on probation for beating your wife. There's a naked hooker in the bathroom, and you're covered in blood. Right. You're on your way to jail, man.
Not everybody else. There's P. Diddy. Oh, I'm sorry. If any EMTs are listening, maybe you might want to cover your ears.
Oh, what? You know that story too?
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. No, it seems like some people have carte blanche. Yeah.
The story he's talking about.
Well, makes you wonder. I mean, they say the abused becomes the abuser.
Yeah.
And in the case of Sheen, of course, his father, was a big Hollywood star, and of course, I mean, I don't know if this has any relevance or anything, but his father's a big Jesuit supporter with the Vatican and everything, and I don't know if it has any relevance or not, but it makes you wonder as far as because obviously it seems like all of these Hollywood insiders are part of some secret society one way or another. I mean, that may just be a front. Maybe he's really OTO or process. Or, who knows one of these things. But that's an interesting side note for that whole thing. It definitely seems like all these Hollywood kids are getting touched on the casting couch or whatever. It seems like to be normal business there.
Well, what I've heard from a very reliable source. That is, it's going to be in a future membership section show, is that Linda Blair, when Linda Blair was 15 years old, and was in that movie with Sheen, who's the adult Sheen's name? Martin Sheen. She was openly, he was like 35 years old, she was 15. And there was actually an incident where the motel room door flew open, and she was having sex with Martin Sheen, and that and she met Charlie Sheen and Emilio Estevez, and they were telling these kids, "This is going to be your new mom," when they were like the same age.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Is Martin Sheen in The Departed? I think he is, right?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that I was just rewatching that the other day to kind of tie it in with a few others. But what's interesting is that thing actually had some weird, like, underage sex ring undertones to it. Like the way Jack Nicholson, which I've heard his story, one story about him. But Jack Nicholson actually approaches the cashier. He's kind of flirting with this underage girl.
Right.
He's getting on a boat. With all the nuns and all the schoolgirls and stuff. And it's just kind of creepy. But I was just thinking about that earlier that that the carte blanche. He plays an FBI informant who is untouchable, and then the police informant finds out why he's untouchable. It's because he's an informant. Sometimes that's closer to life. Those movies, these drug dealers think that it's more like Scarface when it's more like The Departed.
Isn't The Departed is based on Whitey Bulger too, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'll tell you this: back in New York City, when I was on Staten Island, big names, okay, big organized crime names that you would know, names you read in the paper, heads of families. I know for an absolute 100% fact that had relationships with the FBI, where the FBI would come to their home, pick them up in the car, and they would drive around the car for hours, gossiping, ratting out other people. They call it free talks. And this at that time went on all the time. All these guys were ratting out everybody all over the place. And I'll tell you something else too, man. These big mafia guys, when they would get busted, when you see, the big mafia raid, we're arresting 30 guys, and you see the cops leading them out of their house in their bathrobe and all that kind of crap. These guys, I know for a fact, these guys had millions of dollars in cash stashed in the walls of their homes. And it never searched. Right. Never searched it. Never took that money out. They let them keep it because they all got deals going on, And I'll tell you something else too. When Giuliani became mayor, the mob busting Giuliani, he did this deal where he tried to shut down all the strip clubs in New York, And he did shut down a lot of strip clubs in New York, except for the ones that were run by a certain family in New York City. They were untouched, untouchable. All their clubs stayed up no matter what, and they didn't have any problem.
That had to be Gambino or Genovese, obviously, one of those two.
Genovese.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, they're pretty big out here, too. I'm in southern Connecticut, and no, that rings true, because I know a few old gangsters, and a couple of them are reported mob rats as well, too. And, you know, they've done fed time and everything, and, you know, but a good amount of them, you know, from other sources are reported rats, so.
Oh, yeah. Hey, somebody's rattling around there in the background. What, are you killing somebody?
Oh, no, I'm just cleaning up the office. I'm sorry. Oh, it's probably me.
No, that's okay. Let's all try it.
I'll settle down. No, it's cool. I'm listening to you guys.
That'd be a hell of a story. Someone's killed during the Ed Opperman show.
Oh, no.
I'll take it.
Well, you know what? Netflix has a few, like Inside the Mob, CNN, Crime of the Century, and Secrets of America or something like that, and they have they sit down a lot of mobsters. They talk to, well, you know, they cut from a mobster to Giuliani to what was the name, Michael Sherter, or no, not Michael Sherter, but the guy, the Homeland Security guy, the one that when during the underwear bomber happened. What's the guy? The guy that
I know who you're talking about. His brother
was
that's
involved with the body scanners and stuff.
Right.
And I'm just thinking, it's like, well, how come you don't get their side of the story on that? Like, who profits from the body scanners, and who profits from all these talks that Giuliani gives out to the GOP and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, look at Bernie Kerik. Bernie Kerik, man, you know, the guy actually went to prison. They tried to make him the head of Homeland Security. You know, he was this guy's been known about in New York City for a long time because he was the head of the corrections department in New York City, the Department of Corrections. And when he left there, he stole all this stuff. He stole artwork. He stole desks. This guy cleaned the freaking place out. Then he went and became the police commissioner for, what's his name, Giuliani. On 9/11, you can hear him. He's running around. He's Giuliani's thug on that day. They tried to make him Homeland Security, but then something came out about his taxes, and he was hiring maids and stuff like that. And the guy actually wound up in prison. And he's out now. And where does everybody, you get out of prison, where do you go work? Fox News. Everybody on there, man, has been busted. Ron Furman, you got all these guys. They used to have...
Ollie North is on there, too, isn't he?
Ollie North, yeah, right. Yeah,
Fox
News is unbelievable, man. They were saying tonight, they had Geraldo on there tonight saying, you know what, I'm glad that this prisoner got killed because it spared us the cost of a trial. And he would have been convicted anyway. And it spared us all the waste of a time of a trial. And then they said... Well,
they wanted to kill Dormer also with... They wanted to kill Dormer with drones. And, you know, well, I don't know if it was Fox News or who put out an article. It was like, you know, would it be such a bad idea if we used a drone to take out someone like that L.A. cop?
Yeah, it's mind-blowing how they... Well, like, no one even bats an eye, you know? And then they're saying that the other prisoners should get killed.
That's conditioning the people to accept it on a convict, so next, you know, we'll do it to... a rapist or a pedophile, somebody like that, and then, you know, next thing, okay, well, it's okay to do for a common thief or, you know, whoever. And that's, you know, it seems like it's conditioning every step of the way with stuff like that.
And meanwhile, pedophiles don't get anything. The average child rapist serves 3.5 years of an 8-year sentence. And you see this meme on Facebook all the time when they're talking about, hey, we should bring back the death penalty for child rapists. Bull crap.
And everybody agrees, but nobody, looks into the laws and stuff.
These guys are getting out in 3 years.
People with drug addiction and stuff get more.
What was that?
It doesn't help that we have so many powerful people that are, you know, pedophiles and NAMBLA members like Ginsburg and, you know, all these other types, you know. So I mean, they're not going to lobby for something that keeps society messed up. So, you know, they want us depraved, you know, like they are.
Yeah, I wonder what that is. Is that you get into power because they're blackmailing each other, or that gives you some kind of power to rape these little kids? And I don't know what the deal is.
Well, when we were talking about 9/11 and Giuliani, I was remembering how the mafia was selling scrap.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so the mafia, well, I mean, I don't want to say exactly, but, groups that are organized and can do freelance, they would be the ones that, you could get the drugs from, you can get the guns from, you could get women from, and maybe of underage from. And if these guys are smart, they'll have something to cover their butts whenever, if somebody comes knocking,
Oh, definitely.
And so,
that's the way. That's the way. Who's the photographer that supposedly was involved with the? I don't know, it was the Franklin scandal, the Johnny Gosch case, or whatever.
Rusty Nelson.
Right, Rusty Nelson. He supposedly said he took pictures of all these politicians, and that's all. An easy way to own a politician is to have a picture of them. Either if they're gay or something like that, or if they're with a young child. Obviously, right there, you own them now. What are they going to do?
Well, Rusty Nelson got thrown back in jail. He's back in prison for child pornography.
Oh wow.
Yeah. The only.
Oh, by the way, Ed.
Yeah, go ahead.
Martin Sheen made a movie called Believers.
Yeah,
and
right.
It was on satanic sacrifice.
Right. And that movie, there's a lot of people who say that movie has a lot of stuff in there, and that people became obsessed with that movie and went out and did that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, you got to watch that movie.
If you see that movie, you'll see why that happens. Because I had a close friend that was involved in an African religion, and he attended many of those ceremonies. So that's why I think that people, when they see the movie, it's not The Believers. The name of the movie is Believers. And it duplicates exactly what they do in satanic rituals.
Right, and the guy from Matamoros, the black magician down in Matamoros, Mexico, that killed all those people in that ranch down there, he was obsessed with that movie too.
They have in my hometown of El Paso. I talk to my friends down there, and one of the things that they have going across the border is called blood sport, and that is where they will take these young Mexican kids, mostly boys, and they will release them and they hunt them down and then sacrifice them. It's called blood sport.
That kind of sounds like they were calling it the most dangerous game or something like that, which is I forget which one of the whistleblowers had come across with something like that. I wouldn't be surprised with these people. It's interesting too because, as far as you're talking about the motives. In fact, behind like a movie like that, and it makes people believe this stuff. I mean, it's kind of like with Damien Eccles, where it makes sense that he believed in the Crowley teachings to a T, where it said to achieve whatever in magic you have to rape and kill a young boy. The younger and the better, and the smarter the better, and everything like that. There's definitely when you see these people, that meme is definitely prevalent in the occult. It's no doubt about it.
Because when you because I had some friends, my in-laws were involved in the industry in Hollywood, and of course, it's rumor they didn't do it themselves. And by the way, they lived at the top of Mulholland Drive and what's the name of the? Help me with this, Ed. That Dave talked about the road up that goes up.
Laurel Canyon.
Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
Laurel Canyon.
In the canyon, yeah.
Yeah, they lived right at the top of Laurel Canyon.
Isn't there a movie by the name Mulholland Drive? Is that connected to that or no?
Well, there is Mulholland Drive, but what's interesting about all of that is they told me that when you get into that high level of power, and I think Ed was able to see some of this when he was operating that nightclub. You get into that high level of stuff, you will do anything to keep your power. And so that's why I think these people get prompted into getting into this satanic ritual.
Yeah, it's a drunkenness of power. I mean, they become intoxicated, and the same thing as like an addict will go further than he thought he would to, I mean, he wouldn't think of stealing from his mother, then all of a sudden he does take $5 here, $10 there, next thing he's breaking the window, and that kind of thing. Well, I mean, what they're capable of doing is much worse. They're able to buy people off, they're able to get people whacked or whatever.
What they'll do is they'll put something right in front of you, and it is so outlandish, you don't pay attention to it. And my in-laws, I'd have to go down there all the time because my ex-wife would want to go see her father. And I would drive by Wonderland Drive at Wonderland School, and right below that is the movie studios of where victims have come forward and said...
Lookout Mountain.
Yeah, and they would say, that's where certain things happened to me, and this is my therapist, and I know that I was in that movie studio. But yet you have the elementary school called Wonderland School. Today it's called Wonderland School.
Hmm. Yeah, right near where the Four on the Floor murders took place, or with the porn star there. What was his name?
Johnny Wad.
Yeah, Johnny. Right. John Holmes, Johnny Wad. Yeah.
By the way, so we're down to the last 30 seconds. We're going to be dropping PSN. We're going to be dropping Talk Superstation. So, guys, sorry our guest failed, but I think we had some really good callers tonight. So we'll be continuing another hour on Awake Radio Network. And don't forget, too, you can also find this next hour on the Opera Report YouTube channel, Spreaker, iHeart, TuneIn, Stitcher, all that kind of stuff. You can find us. So I just want to say goodnight to PSN, though. Good night, guys, and good night to what are you guys over there at Talk Superstation?
Okay, and I'm going to sign off here, Ed. Thanks for talking to you guys.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Can we still hang on?
Yeah, everybody hang on, yeah.
All right, cool.
I don't know what I'm going to do about this. Let me get this encoder turned off. I don't know what I'm going to do about because all the stations need this show, and it's all cut up now. It's not right. But we'll figure something out. So let's say goodnight to PSN. We're off. Okay, so welcome to the Opera Report After Show. Hey, here we are. So we're not going to break it up on Spreaker, and we're here with some interesting callers. By the way, we're talking about the Wonderland murders, the Four on the Floor. We have coming up, I'm in touch with Scott Thorson. Scott Thorson was Liberace's boyfriend. He was Michael Jackson's boyfriend. He was Liberace's victim. Liberace got a hold of this kid who was like 15 years old, gave him plastic surgery, was molesting him. And then he later on became Michael Jackson's lover. And he was the witness that put away Eddie Nash for the Wonderland murders, because he was there in Eddie Nash's apartment buying methamphetamine when Eddie Nash gave the order to go out and kill everybody over at the Wonderland house. And then he testified against Eddie Nash. They put him in the witness protection program. He couldn't live up to it. He got out of there. And one day, he's in a motel room. They kick in the door, and he's shot 4 times.
Shoot.
Yeah, gets out of that. This guy's all over the place. This guy has some life story we would not believe. So anyway, then they do a movie about him right now, and who plays his part is that kid Matt Damon, right?
Okay, right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So they do a movie about him, and Matt Damon plays him, and what you know it, man, the guy's up there in Reno. You know where he lives? He lives at the Bunny Ranch. My buddy over there, Dennis Hoff, who owns the Bunny Ranch, let him stay up there, paid his bail, got him bailed out of jail, got him this great lawyer.
That's the one that's on HBO, correct?
Yeah, right, the Cat House.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in my member section too. I did an interview with him that no one, all the interviews you hear with Dennis Hoff is nothing like the ones I did with him. I tell you that. I got him to say some interesting stuff. I think I caught him off guard. He was in a hotel room with his young girlfriend there, and I got him to say some stuff he don't think he realized. So anyway, what's this guy Scott Thorson? They just do this movie about his life. He's doing so good. Somehow he winds up with a stolen wallet, and he checks into a motel room with his stolen wallet. The cops come in there. They bust in. They're looking for. It wasn't even a stolen wallet. It was a lost wallet. They find him. They arrest him for this. They worked out a deal. Dennis Hoff cuts him this great deal. Hires these great lawyers up there in Reno. And wouldn't you know it, man, Scott Thorson, they were going to put him in rehab for a year. And he couldn't show up for rehab. So he shows up, they get a hold of him, they take him down to court, they gave him 12 years in prison. He's doing 12 years up there in a Nevada State prison, which is a miserable prison, by the way. So, anyway, we're going to be interviewing him from prison.
Oh, wow. That'll be interesting.
How many people have you interviewed from prison already, Ed? Is that 3?
No, but out of prison. Nobody in prison yet. I don't think I've talked to anybody in prison yet.
Oh, or Joe, the Reverend.
Oh, yeah, Reverend Pinkney. Yeah, my man, Reverend Pinkney. Yeah, he's...
And I think there was someone else. I forgot. You were trying to get... maybe...
Jeffrey McDonald. Jeffrey McDonald.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm going to be interviewing... I got to work on that, by the way, this week. His wife, who's out of prison, he just married this beautiful woman. She's really, really nice. Catherine McDonald. She's a real sweetheart. And I got to get a hold of her and arrange all this because she's working out. That's another thing, too, that we could be doing a documentary about. The Jeffrey McDonald story, because we're in with these people. They love us.
Right. And can I just mention one thing that I noticed about the people who are all, falsely accused or under the pressure, like Reverend Pygmy, yourself, a lot of people that I know, is that this, I don't know, the good side is resilient. Like they're strong even though they go through a lot of crap. They're resilient, and the other side just kind of seems to cut deals and sell out and do whatever is necessary by all means to get ahead or to slip by or get a slap on the wrist or whatever. But I just think it's unfair, but at the same time, I think it's kind of it shows, if there's something looking out for us. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, man, and I hear what you're saying, and you're right. What can we do? And I'll talk to some of these guys too, and I'll say to them, well, what do we do? Just keep pushing forward, right? What else can we do? When I was talking to what's his name, Valentine, Doug Valentine, who wrote the book about the Phoenix program. I kind of get to this point with these guys, these old warriors, and I'll say to them, well, what can we do? Well, what do you think? Is there any hope? And almost always, it's like, yeah, we got to keep pushing forward. We just got to keep pushing forward, one step in front of the other, and keep resisting. It's all we can do. And now
the 100th monkey thing or whatever it is too. It's where it's you keep waking people up, and hopefully eventually that person will make a difference in one way or another.
Well, I'll tell you this: if you look at the 100th monkey thing, that's totally bullcrap. And even the guy who started it, said,
I don't know much about it. I was just quoting it. What do you got on that?
Oh, well, the guy who made it up confessed he made it up. It's in Wikipedia. The whole story is in Wikipedia. But we were just talking about Josh Brookshire, who has always interesting things to add to the conversation. Josh, what's going on, bro?
Nothing much, Ed, man. I heard you were going to do a little round table this evening. I figured I'd call you up because it's always good to talk to you. You're a good man yourself. I just wanted to jump in on what you're saying, man. It's kind of interesting to jump in on something like that, like what can we do? My whole opinion, and I'm younger than you and most of your guests, man, it's like I feel like kind of jaded in a way. It's just like the only thing we can do is just the real like radicalism is existing, and not letting yourself get put into jail, or not let yourself like be turned into like a reactionary racist or like let yourself be duped out by like hippie nonsense, like it is important to fight, but like I'm not going to delude myself and think that just because we're throwing rocks at the building that they're going to actually let us inside the doors. You know what I'm saying, Ed?
I do know what you're saying. But before we get started, you got any gigs coming up?
Yeah, we have one here in our hometown, Winston-Salem, at Reanimator Records. We're playing with like an ambient experimental group called Phi Age Number 9 and a good surf rock band called Snatch the Snail. It's on July 11th on a Saturday. If anyone in North Carolina wants to come out, we're going to be having a good old time.
And what's your website again?
We changed our name. We're now called Speak and I. It's speakandi.bandcamp.com.
Okay.
And we have a new record out called Bubbling Crude. You can name your own price and download it if you want it for free. I'd want everybody to just take it with you, burn yourself a CD, and blast it in your car. Like, you know, we do all this for the art. That's my own form of resistance, you know, is creativity.
I hear you, man.
Thanks for letting me do a little plug, Ed. I wasn't planning on that, but thanks, man.
No. You always plug. What about you other guys? You guys got any websites or stuff you want to plug?
No.
Justin?
No. Well, you know, the website that I was on is we've been inactive for. There's no new material or anything on there. It's not really worth a plug. But there's realnewsonline.com with stuff that I've worked on. My old radio shows. We haven't done a radio show in over a year and a half though. So really nothing much new on there. But pretty much. No, I agree with Josh though as far as his point, and that's like, you know, and it's going to be your own little resistance as well. It's like, you know, with me, it's like the one good thing I could take out of all the research and everything I've done is pretty much just to stop, you know, going to the Walmarts as much. And obviously, there's some things you have to go for, you know, the big corporations and whatnot. But I grew a ton of food here, you know, and on a small plot of land and things like that, where it's just like, you know, if you can resist by doing things, you know, your own way, and like you said, just existing and not falling into these traps and psyops, and you know, I think you're winning most of the time, because you know, and also too by you know, if you have kids, by teaching them the right way. I think that's really the only thing you could do nowadays. You know,
amen to that. Yeah, you talk about Walmart. You know, man, we only need to cut into Walmart's profit like 20%. You know. And we could bring that company to their knees. We don't have to shut them down totally, man, but we could really...
it's happening at McDonald's right now, isn't it?
Right.
Didn't they have the lowest products?
Hey, but let me ask you, Josh, what do you have going on? Any news with that Pazuzu guy?
Yeah, the trial's ongoing. I can tell you a little bit of tidbits that I learned. The whole case has been underreported in the media here in North Carolina, and I now know exactly why and what happened when he got busted and everything. If you got a moment, I can tell you that.
Yeah, let's hear the whole thing. Start off, tell us who is Pazuzu, what's going on in that house, how you've been to that house, right?
No, man, but I had a roommate who went over there and told me never to go over there. It was completely disgusting. Anyway, for the people who haven't...
Is that the Satanists down there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. But it's much more complicated than that, because this guy, Pazuzu Algarad, and his wife, Amer Birch, basically what they were doing is killing their own friends and stealing drugs off of them. He had a previous arrest, him and another guy, for shooting an African-American blind man in the back of the head by the Yadkin River, and he took basically 1 kilo of cocaine from this guy, and he pled insanity because he had a facial tattoo, and they let him off with probation. And then years later, he'd have like crazy meth head parties at his house and be like joking around like, yeah, man, you don't believe I have bodies buried in my backyard? I can go dig right now. And people are like, nah, you're just joking, man, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And people were reporting it to the police. This had been community knowledge, apparently. I had moved to this little town after living in Greenville, North Carolina, and people were saying, yeah, we got a Satanist here. People say he has bodies buried in the yard. The police had known about it, but they were writing off these reports because it's basically like hearsay from like drug addicts and like losers and burnouts, basically. So here's the crazy part, man, and this I only know because my old next door neighbor, like, sort of like hung out with him, but not really, like, you know, bubble scenes and whatever, is this guy was legitimately getting online and like befriending radical jihadists and like learning Arabic and all these things. So the NSA sent basically a bolo to the SBI here. They sent it to the Forsyth County Sheriff's Department. They looked up the name and then cross-referenced and said, wait, people are saying this guy has bodies buried in his backyard.
Wait a second. Pazuzu was learning Arabic?
Yes. I don't know if his Facebook is still up there, but he had legitimate Syrian rebels as friends. He had progressed beyond like normal Satanism and was worshiping the deity Tiamat, which is a Sumerian pre-Christian water demon, if I'm not mistaken, of Sumerian mythology. And he was planning either to go join them or some speculation of a lone wolf attack or whatever, but basically they used this bolo and the reports as probable cause to go to his house, and it was a shallow grave, like one shovel down, and there was bones. This guy had taken a Domino's pizza delivery driver at a Domino's that's right behind where I worked, had basically lured him into letting him like catch a ride with him, held this guy at gunpoint, drove him to his house, and shot this dude in the face. He killed him, took all of his money and all these things, took the keys to his house and took his drug supply and all these things. So anyway, they roll up in his house. It's nasty. People are saying that he lived with his mother and his common law wife. People were saying that his mother had to have known, and she didn't get charged or anything. They just evicted her from the house and charged him and his wife, as well as another young lady, which one of my friends sort of dated. It's really weird. A 23-year-old young lady, I guess, was over there trying to score drugs from this guy, and wrong place, wrong time. You saw it, and you better help me or I'll kill you type situation. And in my opinion, they're going to give this guy the death penalty. It's North Carolina. I'm pretty sure his wife will get a life sentence, but this guy's he's going down. And this is some inside information that's straight from my family. Is days before that happened, my little brother works at a restaurant that stays open till 1:00 in the morning, and this guy showed up and he was making fun of him because this guy had weird facial tattoos. Ed, you've seen the mug shots. He looks like a total creepo, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and the house, too. People have to understand this house, they were peeing in the living room. This wasn't a house. This thing was a disaster. And they would just piss in every room, on the floor, on the carpet. I don't think there was running toilets in this house.
Not even that, but they had a spare guest room with the entire floor taken out, where this guy was you can't really prosecute somebody for killing chickens and drinking their blood or whatever, but he was taking animal carcasses and throwing it into a hole in the floor of his house, down into where the foundation is,
right.
Filling up the floorboards type thing. So there was a 10-foot radius circle around with all these animal carcasses in there, cats, chickens. He didn't hurt dogs, apparently. People were but he loved his dogs. But no, this guy was waiting for every new moon, every blue moon, and he'd cut a chicken and drink its blood. For whatever it's worth, we can debate on his religious beliefs or whatever, but this guy had a very legitimate, dangerous drug personality. You know what I'm saying? A meth head personality, unpredictable, dangerous, very volatile. That type of situation. And originally they were going to tear down the house, but I guess they refurbished it because it's up for rent. I was actually debating renting it because it's $150 less than my 1-bedroom apartment. It's only $300 a month for a 2-bedroom house with a backyard and a front yard. But I was nah, there's no way I could ever live in a place where murders were committed and all just bad juju and all this bad stuff.
Yeah,
but,
it's not just one murder either. You're talking serial murders.
Yeah, definitely. And originally there were rumors that he had killed 2 Winston-Salem prostitutes, but nothing ever came of that. So either they never found any evidence or that was just hearsay. But my little brother is an owner now of a restaurant, and one of his employees, her boyfriend got a DUI and was put in county lockup. He was in the next jail cell next to this guy, and he called his girlfriend crying, like, "You gotta get me out of here. This guy doesn't sleep. He's moving his fingers all weird and talking in tongues and staring at me," like an 18-year-old, like, thug, like, African-American, like, like, supposedly tough type dude, and he was real shook by this guy, So it's really weird, man. Like, apparently, like, his wife has been, like, saving up her feces and, like, all this stuff. Like, it's really weird, and there's a reason that it's not been reported even in local papers around here, and they don't want it to come out that, he had possible connections to foreign factions and all that. But that's pretty much the story up till now. Court case is still ongoing. I was just at the Forsyth County Hall of Justice getting a traffic ticket dismissed, and they're holding him in that building somewhere down in the depths, man. So that's what's going on, Ed.
Wait, and the wife in the jail is saving up her urine and feces in plastic bags or something? How's she doing that?
Yeah, she's convinced that, like, this, like, there's a whole thing with, like, esoteric magic, like the use of bodily fluids, like, enhances, like, the will and all this stuff. So she's, like, obviously completely insane, but she's, like, writing on the walls with her, bodily fluids and, like, saying, "I know I'm going to get off," and all this stuff like that. Like, it's pretty nuts, man. Like, just crazy,
Hey, Josh?
Yes, sir.
I was going to ask you because you were mentioning about the urine and the feces and all that, and I remember seeing something, the first time I heard about urine being used in some kind of rituals or something had to do with a house that they found in Newton that was full of drums and gallons of urine in it. That was the first time that I heard about rituals using urine and stuff like that. So when you were mentioning this, I was wondering if do you know anything about what these people believed in? Like, were they just methods going on some crazy binge, or were they sort of or of course meth was involved, but did they have some kind of pseudo esoteric idea? Like, it kind of sometimes seems like there's this kind of you know what I'm preaching to the choir here. You guys know what I'm talking about, but is there a satanic element in this somehow? I mean,
well, what I was saying earlier is he had moved on to worshiping Tiamat, which, for whatever you want to say, it's still like a ancient Sumerian, like Babylonian creature. Yeah. So it isn't like a case where there's like some satanic coven around like this area, because like if there were, I would definitely know about it, because I have like friends in the art scene and like all this stuff. As per his personal beliefs, in my opinion, is, well, it's a mixture of drug psychosis, like obvious like drug psychosis. This guy was freebasing cocaine, shooting heroin, smoking meth. He was a terrible, terrible human being, very volatile. He hadn't showered for, last estimates, probably something like 18 months or something like that at the time of his arrest. And just a very grimy, disgusting, like gutter punk type person. I don't know if you know like the term crust punk, like the hobo core type people, that just like find beauty in like wallowing in, all nasty stuff and all that.
When you were mentioning the hole in the ground where they throw the carcasses in and stuff, and I mean, at first it sounds like maybe a homemade garbage disposal or something, but no, definitely not. I wonder if sometimes, like you mentioned drug psychosis and stuff. I was hearing about some people that do, I'm not sure if it's like called transpersonal psychology or psychology sessions, therapy sessions with drugs like LSD or something. Sometimes they'll have a room full of props and little toys and like a shelf, and they start moving things around, and and the doctor will analyze, what he picked has a certain archetype and that kind of thing. And I wonder if sometimes certain drugs have a way of unraveling things that are in the psyche. Like, for example, if someone has, like, a Christian upbringing and maybe they also have strong guilt of something or just have a hard time dealing with the decisions they've made and stuff, like, do they start enacting things that they know maybe subconsciously or something? Because there's a hole in the ground. I mean, it reminds me of something like if it was like in true crime or something, the detective would think that, it's like he's playing out the bottomless pit out of Apocalypse. Kind of like how Charles Manson kind of had he thought he was in the book, an actor in the Book of Revelations or something, like I think sometimes
real quick,
these things come to the forefront or something.
About True Detective, a really interesting thing about it, if you want to go back and watch the first series, the Woody Harrelson character, his daughter was molested by that cult too. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's implied by the usage of when she has the Barbies and the drawings and all that, right?
Right. There's actually when he's going through her picture book, there's actually the yellow crown, the same crown is in there, and he never noticed it. This guy, he was looking right at it. He never made the connection. And also, too, remember how she was acting out sexually? She was in the car with two boys, having sex with two boys. Mm-hmm. So all the clues are there, man. But it's
well, not only that, Ed, man. It's weird because I actually I borrowed the DVD set from my little brother. I gotta get it back to him. But in the very last episode where he's talking to his divorced wife, and he's basically saying goodbye to her in no uncertain terms, and she says about her daughter that she's fine now that she's on her medication. Implying that she either had a psychotic break or a suicide attempt or something like that, severe psychological trauma, more so than just a rebellious teenager type thing. I'm a firm believer not in what's the term, implanted memories, but I know for a fact my mother was a level 3 Department of Social Services, Child Protective Services social worker. And the effects of trauma on the human brain, the brain has an uncanny ability where if you just experience something horrible in your life, your brain automatically blacks it out. You have no choice into it. Your brain goes into a shutdown mode to protect your overall conscious mind, how, Ed, you especially, I know, working with various state employees that they're not allowed to discuss, cases and things like that, right?
Sure.
After my mother left and all that stuff, after she got cancer and was forced to leave her job, I didn't talk to her about it until, years later when she was in, a good state. So I'd ask her, what was it like going to these people's houses? And she just says, honestly, half of them I can't remember. It's so horrible. Even just being a normal, social worker going to investigate reports of, familial incest and rape cases and things like that. It's just so disgusting and evil, just so darkly evil that you just, parts of it, you just black it out of your mind because you don't want to remember it, later on down the road. It's weird how the brain shuts itself down to protect itself, but years later, memories come back. Until I moved back up here to where my family grew up. I was born in the area that I lived in now, but my family grew up at the beach, and then I went to college, and then made it back west to where my family is now. And memories just come back to me, and I'm only 28. Not even bad memories, but they just come back in my mind, and I'm just what? That happened, just remembering a little 6-year-old girl I had a crush on when I was in kindergarten, things like that. Sensory recall is a very real thing, and it pops your brain back into certain levels. But as for the question of whether drugs can tap into an archetype or a collective unconscious, in my opinion, I do believe there's a reason they call alcohol spirits, Our ancestors used these things for ritual purposes. It wasn't until the time of the Romans that they had big we're just doing this for recreational purposes. And in pre-Christian times, it was like a right of like certain special people were allowed to like smoke the cannabis or whatever. Like it wasn't like party down all the time. So it makes me think like the rapid and casual drug use, like any, I mean, you know, to each his own, you know, I say end the drug war and like, let's get all these like low level people out of prison. But at the same time, I think if you do use enough like LSD, something will wrap itself inside your mind, or if you take enough mushrooms, like you'll change your personality. It's like if you know someone that like becomes addicted to cocaine, like their personality completely changes. It hollows people out from the inside. You can like look straight in through the pupils of somebody that is like geeked out of their mind on cocaine, and there's nothing there. Like they're so dilated, there's no soul, there's no personality. You know, Ed, you were in New York in the 80s. You know what I'm talking about, right? They just have that seven yard stare or whatever. You know, they just look right through you.
You know, it's funny too, because in the 80s, a lot of people were doing coke, man, like all day long. You know, it was just people weren't openly doing it; they would deny it to each other. But you'd go walk into lawyers' offices and stuff like that. Everyone was using coke. It was just amazing how many people were using coke all day long and hiding it from each other. And you're right, yeah. And a lot of weird stuff went on back in those days.
I'm sure that back then you had the barbiturates and everything as well too. The 2-on-all, 2nd-all, all those things.
Yeah,
the Quaaludes, right? Yeah.
Right, and I'm sure we've all come across some research about how people mention that maybe drug use kind of opens you up for to spiritual possession or something. And I don't know if there is, then it seems like it would be definitely something that could lower your defenses in a way. You're not clear-headed. You're kind of thinking on edge, not making good decisions, things like that. I mean, I don't know. The one thing I was going to mention about the satanic rituals in the urine and all that, I remember hearing about this ritual that I think it's about taking Amanita muscaria, and that the only way that it worked was after your body processed it or something, you would urinate and then drink your own urine. I was just thinking, like, I wonder if like some of these things do involve like drugs and things like that. Like if you were taking drugs and like some kind of weird satanic weird ritual you have, then I mean drinking your own urine, I mean it's only going to give you a bigger boost, and you're going to have you're going to restart the high or something. You know, I don't know if. You know, there's probably some Satanists out there just laughing at us. Right? Like, no, it's nothing like that. I don't know what you guys are talking about. But I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, sometimes there's these little weird connections.
Well, I mean, to clarify, you know, I'm no square. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I've been to college. I've had my fun times. You know, I just got off.
Neither am I. Yeah.
Cracked open a beer, but there's a difference between like a person who, you know, like a beer with a nice like cheesesteak, you know, and then like the difference with that, and then a person that wakes up in the morning and starts drinking. You know, my stepfather, he was a contractor, and he had a guy on his crew that just refused to ever get a driver's license because, like, at the age of 18, he just got into drinking, and he was. You know, he was good to hand the shingles up the ladder, but you can't, like, put this guy on top of, like, a 3-story building, like, and have him, like, lay down shingles because it ruins your body after a certain point. It ruins your soul, like, to a certain extent. Like, my father, like, he wasn't in my life. He was addicted to pharmaceutical drugs, you know, and it completely destroys families. You know, there's a difference between treating addiction and then, like, casual like recreational usage that doesn't really like interfere with anything. Like I'm not saying like, you know, smack the joint out of like some like dude's hand wearing the like Rastafari colors, because man, like, you know, like he's just trying to like, you know, have a good time, get a little buzz or whatever. But there's a difference between that and then people that push it. You know, like you can push things that are normally good. You know, you can say, oh, yeah, you know, weed's the cure for everything, man. If they just legalize all this, you know, we'd all open our minds and, like, see the world for what it really is. Like, nah, like, that stuff is only really good to unwind and, like, maybe, like, help out your artistic, like, nature. It's not something that's going to help you when the police kick down your door. If anything, it's gonna, that's what's gonna cause you to get shot. Like they'll shoot you for anything, but if they roll up in there and they smell weed smoke, they'll kill you.
Can you
That's
still
just my
hear me?
opinion.
No. Yeah, go ahead, Kristen.
Okay, well, I just want to say that the conversation shouldn't be about the substance. It's never about the substance. And I think in the 80s we had this, real anti-drug hysteria campaign where it became cocaine is such a bad drug, marijuana is such a bad drug. Whatever the substance is, it's never so bad. It's always, substances can be, useful to us in the right, whatever. If you're, hit by a car, you need morphine or whatever, but it's not that the drug is so bad that it makes you do bad things or it takes away your soul. It's how we use these substances. And the more we disengage from each other, isolate, disengage from our communities, disengage from our families, and disengage from, people and relationships that are powerful, drugs will look to other experiences like pornography, drugs, to fill those voids. So, it's not, it doesn't, so like, same with alcohol, it's not that alcohol is so bad, it's that when you don't have other powerful experiences in your life and you're using that to, it becomes everything to you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right, like how it turns into...
I think it's just a wrong conversation. Like when Phil Seymour Hoffman died, they were like the killer heroin or whatever. Right. It's not that is so dangerous, and there's obviously safer ways to, use that. The conversation should be like how, if people are going to use this drug, how can we prevent them from dying? It's not that heroin is so bad and it's such a terrible epidemic and we got to get the heroin off the streets. Start from, you have to start from the demand, not from the supply. And why are people using it? Because it's never really about the substance. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it says in the Bible, too, all things in moderation. All things. Yeah. Hey, we're joined by another caller, 619.
When you lower the drinking age, you have less abuse. When you make it this thing, when you integrate it into families early on, where, we'll have a glass of wine or something, you have less binge drinking and this kind of crazy overuse, misuse of alcohol. But Americans don't do the sensible thing that works. We just do the thing that makes us feel good, the emotional thing, like make it illegal, make it, people shouldn't have it. Not sort of a realistic view that people get high, and will probably get high way past when we're dead and gone. That's just the nature of people. But, at the proportion, it's going to go up. The more people isolate and don't have communities, don't have families, and economics, of course, have terrible economic situations, then it makes sense to buy a $10 bag of heroin on a Friday night to have a good time, if you're not, if you're economically under stress and whateso, you know what I mean, and have no other outlets, have no other, and have no other experiences. So, the way we define addiction is the consequences. It's not whether you're dependent on the substance or how much you use the substance. Really, it's doing it to consequences. But AA and all that kind of thinking has just hijacked us, and it's very unhealthy kind of thinking around substances, and it will just create more use, not less use. Hey,
the guy that founded AA, he died addicted to LSD, and he was insane. He died insane.
I don't know if you can. Right.
Yeah.
It's got a lot.
Was he connected to anything? Scientology or anything?
Well, it's a triangle. The AA thing is the pyramid. Their logo is like a pyramid in a circle, and he was very interested in occult things. It comes from the Buckman Group. You can read the history of AA. If people are interested or have trouble with drugs and alcohol, there's 7 other free options besides
Yeah, we
AA.
got to do a show about that, about AA, and about the guy who founded AA. Hey, but we're joined by another caller.
Bill W.
What's it? 619. What's your story?
Hey, Ed. How you doing?
Good. Who's this?
Yeah, this is Bro Lee.
How are you?
Good. Hey, I could answer a few of the questions about at least the occult aspect of the drugs and the urine. I know that Gandhi, during prolonged fasts, would have to drink his own urine because there's certain hormones in your body, when you don't eat for long periods of time. And they've done scientific studies with Tibetan monks and stuff where they've gone without food for over 200 days in scientific conditions. So it's been studied. And it seems like it all ties into their weird form of vampirism. And it ties into the cocaine, too, because according to Bill Schneblin, who was training to be a vampire through voodoo, they stop eating. And they do, prolonged fast. And they have to use the cocaine, too. It's, to keep them going, I guess, from lack of food. So there's a lot of information out there on the Internet about those kind of occult practices. It's really weird stuff. And somebody I've been researching recently is Sean Manchester. He came out in the 70s, and he's one of those the Orthodox priest that ties into the Kennedy assassination. He's one of those type priests, and he talks about actually killing one of these vampires. This is their form of. It's not like the Hollywood stuff. It's their weird form of fasting and astral projection, all that weird stuff.
Wait, who's this guy?
But
Can we get him on the show?
Say that again?
Who's this guy? Can we get him on the show? Is he still around?
Yeah, he's been on a few talk shows. If you search YouTube, you'll find him, and he's really interesting. It was through your show that I realized that this guy was the real deal, even though people make fun of him.
Who's that? Bill Schneblin?
No, I'm talking about Sean Manchester. Bill Schneblin,
okay.
Yeah, he seems like he's the real deal, too.
Sean Manchester.
But Sean Manchester, he actually wrote books about Satanism back in the 80s and 70s, and it ties into the vampire case he was involved with, and it's a really interesting case. I would suggest anyone look into it. It's just so it kind of ties in a lot of these pieces you guys are talking about with the heavy cocaine and everything. It all deals in with their vampires. Even Fritz Springmeier, in one of his lectures, he talks about their Illuminati's high-level practice is vampirism.
Oh, yeah.
Bro Lee, sir.
Yeah.
Hey, man,
one thing that's kind of creepy when you think about vampirism, and it's that, it's kind of dangerous to take a huge load of drugs or something. You could overdose, but if you were to give it to somebody else, and it's horrifying to think about, but if you were to give it to somebody else and maybe drink their blood or urine or whatever, then you'd have all the kicks of all of the mixtures of drugs, but with a little bit less of a danger because it's kind of gone through, it's been diluted through people's,
Yeah, I wonder, though, if it would still be effective after going through the kidneys and liver and everything. No, you may very well be right, and it may be a part of their beliefs, but it just makes me wonder, as far as, obviously, you're in, like the guy said earlier about the Tibetan monks. So I think that definitely makes a lot of sense as far as, I think even stem cells, I think, are present in urine and everything like that. Not that I'm advocating to drink your own urine or whatever, but it makes sense. Some of the stuff. I think that the main thing with the occult and the bodily fluid things, it's something where it's like it's part of your life form one way or another, and it ties into the vampirism. I think it's also something where it's like, hey, we just got this guy to eat feces, or whatever. I mean, I don't know if that has to do for black milk or whatever.
Too. And some of the cults too. It seems like the cult leader. That's one of the things he wants his people to do too, is to to like drink their urine. And there's a few videos of these cult leaders actually trying to get their followers to drink their own urine. So there's something to it. I don't know what it is other than the hormones that are in the body.
Right. There was this 6-7 years ago. I was in touch with a few Satanists online, and I don't know. I mean, I dabbled in all kinds of philosophies from Buddhism and Satanism and stuff. And when I was talking to this person and kind of talking to them about one thing, the first thing they wanted, a recruit to do was to go to your local church and take, the little chalice that they have. And there was always some mention of drinking blood and stuff like that. But that was a long time ago, and I've kind of touched those people again. It's just like to say, after so many years, hopefully they're not listening.
If I may say so, I do have a bit of a not a rebuttal, but to reemphasize what Bro Lee was saying is, if anyone has actually done any legitimate research into the serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer, then if you've read like the entire case study, it comes out in the end when they busted Jeffrey Dahmer in July, after he had been on his final rampage where he had killed 4 people in a span of 10 days, right before he was caught, and then right before that, he admits that he was working up to the point where the entire month before his arrest, he subsisted entirely on human meat. It was something that cannibalism was something that he had worked himself up to, but at the same time, it was facilitated by his rampant abuse of alcohol, which, they always say, he had to get himself drunk to work himself up to like this point where he would kill people or whatever. But by that point, he had already killed a hitchhiker by the time he was 18. He had joined the army, left, and committed his first murder, after the hitchhiker by 28, I believe. But once he got it, it's very interesting if you study like the pathology of like a complete deranged, detached, someone that had lost their mind entirely. To paraphrase Malachi Martin, like totally possessed. He had worked himself up to the point beyond just drugging someone and killing them, and then he, would commit necrophilia, and then he worked himself up to the final act of cannibalism. And then in his last, blood frenzy, he subsisted solely upon cannibalized meat of people that he was drugging. So he was also receiving even if he was cooking it out, it's the act of owning somebody, or even if you're consuming your own fluids, it's owning yourself. It's a metaphysical practice, all these things. It's very interesting. Josh, because at the same time, he had the bone altar, he had an altar in his house. All these things, He
had an altar in his house. And also, too, Jeffrey Dahmer, when Jeffrey Dahmer was a kid, they went on a school trip to Washington, D.C., and they were at the Lincoln Monument, and he says, would you guys like to go tour the White House? He went to a payphone, made a phone call, and they had a private tour of the White House. Did you guys know that?
And not even that, but you have to wonder, they write off the famous escape thing as this racist, homophobe, Milwaukee Police Department, when a child is literally drugged to the point where he can't stand, he's butt naked, and he's handcuffed, and then supposedly this drunken, idiotic, Wisconsin, gangly, almost mentally handicapped person say, "Oh, no, it's my boyfriend," all these things, and they just let this guy go back with him. It's a case beyond police negligence.
But didn't they also? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. You. I talk too much, man.
What I heard was that I think it was in the YouTube series called Program to Kill. Actually, yeah. Where I think they mentioned that the police actually went back to the apartment with them, and that there were cameras set up or something like that, and there's no way that they couldn't have seen the cameras. Come on, the kid, like you're saying. who? I'm sorry. Who are you? No, I'm sorry. Why is he naked? Like any of that would have been.
Well, I tell you, I've heard the police. There's a recording of when the cops call back to dispatch and say, "Oh no, they had an alternative relationship," and he's joking around about it. You know,
and he's like, we gotta take my partner back to get deloused. You know, all this stuff's like, nah. But you have to realize before that, Jeffrey Dahmer was on probation for abducting, not abducting, but luring a high school freshman to his apartment, drugging him under pretense of taking pedophilic photography of him. And the court psychiatrist said that this man is a danger to society. He believes that his only crime is that he chose a person that was below the age of consent. And they didn't put this guy in jail. They put him in prison. They let him continue his job at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. And while he was meeting with his probation officer every 2 weeks, he killed 3 people. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't tell me that they didn't, you know, the only, like, weird white guy in an entirely African-American neighborhood, people weren't, like, continually saying, yo, this guy's messed up. Like, something's wrong with this guy. I hear chainsaws and people screaming, and it smells like dead bodies and, like, people evacuating their bowels in this guy's apartment, you know? It's just, like, there's a narrative of police, but I don't believe it.
Well, you know what?
A very simple thing, too.
He shows the human compromise element of all this, that these people have been humanly compromised. I mean, that comes out really clear on Ed's show, and I think it's an important service that he's doing in that respect. You know, all these people have been compromised.
By the way, speaking of compromise, because it was Detective Mayor Jim Rothstein who told me that he felt that Dahmer was involved with the process church. You know, and he had some kind of... We got to do a whole show on Dahmer by himself. And one of the reasons, too, why we hear that recording of the cops talking to the woman is because after the cops left, she called back to find out what happened. Did they save that little boy that was in the house? And that's when they were joking around. So you're right. Yeah, it's over and over with Dahmer. That's just a whole...
Yeah. Another thing, a simple thing with him, too, is the fact that, you know, he's going and buying all these, or getting these big, you know, metallic drums and supposedly carrying them, you know, to his apartment and everything, and you know, and all these different chemicals and all this other stuff. I mean, that's insane to think that somebody's doing that by themselves. I mean, you know, the fact that their official story has him, you know, doing all this stuff and getting on a bus with it and everything. I don't know. It's just silly for anyone to believe that guy, you know, was able to stay under the radar for that long doing what he was doing.
Yeah, it's like the Cleveland, the guy, Ariel Castro.
Yeah,
know?
Right.
And now they got all these books and these movies with the same exact story. There's no way. Did you know that his other daughter killed her own child? Ariel Castro has a daughter that's... No one knows. Ariel Castro right now has a daughter who's in prison for stabbing her own child. Okay? Her own infant baby she stabbed. You know, there's so much crap about that Ariel Castro that's not even near making the news. And then they got these TV shows. Yeah, go ahead.
What about when the one of the girls that was kidnapped went on, like, the Today Show or something like that, and you could just hear in her speech that she kept using, like, monarch programming words when she was being interviewed, like butterflies, and even Dr. Phil, he had that girl on that was kidnapped. I forget what her name was, but she talked about when she was kidnapped and they put her in the basement. The basement was full of leaves. And you have Colin Ross, who wrote about Ames Leaf Room, where they were doing, you know, mind control experiments with the leaves in the rooms. Because, you know, it's probably a trigger. Because, you know, leaves are everywhere, and if you can program a leaf to be a trigger, that would be a great reinforcement for mind control.
Yeah, what's up with that? I mean, it seems like there's a lot of things in the media that kind of like let these slip almost as triggers. When you were mentioning the Wonderland murders, I mean, there's so much Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz themes in a lot of the MK Ultra programming, but so is in a lot of movies. It's always like, you're no longer in Kansas. It's always a reference, like, Welcome to Wonderland. Like, it's always in these movies when things are about to get weird.
True Detective. Yeah. That show True Detective, the opening scene on True Detective, It shows the woman that had been sacrificed, and it showed her True Detective, the first season.
I think it also has
focuses
butterflies.
in on her back. Yeah, but it focuses in on her back on the opening scene where there's a spiral. And I don't know how many people are aware of this, but Ed's show kind of revealed part of the Illuminati, and the Trine Goddess symbol is the spiral. They have the three goddess symbol, and that was tied into the Atlanta child murders. And that's the opening scene of True Detective, is the spiral on her back. Because depending on where the positioning of the spiral is, you know, it's the young woman, the mother, and the old crone is the symbol. And I see that spiral everywhere now on TV, including kids commercials and kids cartoons. They encode it into the background of the cartoons, and I'm wondering if these people have such long-term plans that if they're not linking that spiral to like everything a kid sees on TV that's happy and cheerful, and then when those children grow up to be adults, all they would have to do is put those spirals in the background, even though your conscious mind wouldn't really be paying attention to them. You would have all those happy, good feelings from childhood after seeing the spiral symbol, and then they could link it to any story they would want to make you feel, you know, whatever way they want you to feel about it, depending on which symbol they encoded with in your cartoons when you were a kid. I mean, it's amazing.
The yellow brick road begins in a spiral.
Oh my God, I was just gonna say that.
Yeah, Jinx 1, 2, 3, man. You owe me a soda, bro.
All right, whenever I see you. But anytime they showed him knocked, in cartoons, whether it was the Joker or the Penguin, how he had his umbrella, there's always a spiral that you trigger in your head as you're getting sleepy and you're, you know, it's always and it's also I think the lawnmower in that True Detective series, he was always just mowing in a spiral in a circle. It's kind of like a hint at that it was him. Or I'm sorry, I don't know if anybody's still watching it.
Hey, let me blow your mind though for a second. When you guys talked about spirals, the interesting thing is, and I myself, you know, I enjoy researching various cult beliefs, different religions around the world, things like that, symbolism, you know, and I approach it from a non-judgmental like aspect. I just like to learn. But the thing about the spiral is, whether it's going clockwise or counterclockwise, it's either the absorption of the outside world or the emanation of power from the individual, the will affecting the world, you know, from one outside, from all inside. You dig what I'm saying? But going back to serial killers and approaching it from another individual that lived a state over from Jeffrey Dahmer is, people need to really look hard into the John Wayne Gacy case, because it was proven that at least one of the murders occurred when he was outside of the house. It was admitted that a young boy that worked at his contracting employee dug holes in his crawl space and spread lie. So there is an obvious conspiracy there, as well as the fact that one of his construction workers went on to be a part of the Chicago Ripper Gang. I don't know if anyone knows what the Chicago Ripper Gang was, but it was a group of, I believe, 4 individuals that were abducting women. It was called the Cult of the Left Breast. That's what they referred to it as, where they'd, not to be graphic, but they'd use piano wire to cut off a woman's left breast and do various things with it. It's very fetishistic. They refer to themselves as a cult. The ringleader of that was basically a protege of Jeffrey Dahmer. Or not Jeffrey Dahmer, but John Wayne Gacy. Along with that, with his connection to the Chaseys and all that, and Rosalind Carter, you know. Sorry for speaking over you guys. My bad.
No. You were speaking. Sorry, I was just saying that it sounds like Walk Among the Tombstones, where they were, you know, cutting off women's breasts. Same thing. You know, so obviously Hollywood gets a lot of their, you know, same storylines from stuff like this.
Yeah, one of the theories with Gacy is that he because he owned the house, that they were bringing bodies to his house and dumping bodies, and he was just sitting on top of these bodies, you know, and he had to keep his mouth shut. But again, Gacy's another one too. Like you said, Josh, there's all kinds of connections with this guy. That there's no way he did this by himself either. But it's just amazing.
He got off again and again from child sodomy laws. Like, kids would come and say, John Wayne Gacy tried to pay me $100 to go beat up this kid so he wouldn't go testify against him, you know? Like, a child would go to the authorities, make a complaint, and never show up for trial and never be heard from again. You know, it's impossible for people to think that not only were there more murders by this individual than they're accrediting him to, but it's undeniable that there's a conspiracy beyond it. And me personally, like, I look at not like Alex Jones or David Icke when I look at, like, symbols or numbers or anything, but it's no coincidence that John Wayne Gacy was 32 years old and they found 33 bodies and pinned them all on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That is that's a hard line, you know?
There's so many news reports that you see, even in the local news, is you like the age or the number or the victim or the street they're found or something. There's always these weird occult meanings.
Fidel Castro was in jail for 33 days until he supposedly hung himself, you know?
Well, guys, we're about to drop...
These things don't happen in the vacuum.
Something interesting for you.
Wait, hold on 1 second, because we're about to drop all the live stations. We'll still be live on Spreaker, and then if you want to catch this, we'll stay on the air. We'll be on Spreaker. It'll be on later on iHeart. Right now, TuneIn's going to stay on, but we're going to be dropping all the stations, Awake Radio and Awake US and UK and Just Us Radio and all those stations. We're going to be dropping them at the hour. But one thing I just want to mention real quick is in the members section, I interviewed Kelly Bonaski, and she knew a guy who lived in his parents' garage, and he went out and picked up this woman at the liquor store, brought her back, chopped her up in this garage. He didn't have a bathroom. He didn't have a kitchen in that garage. He didn't have a bathroom in that garage. His parents were home when he was taking the body parts from the garage and washing up in the bathroom, I suppose, back to the backyard and cooking it in a pit and eating it. The parents were never arrested.
Jesus.
So this stuff is going on all over the place.
That might be multi-generational, though, because the multi-generation goes through the family bloodlines.
You got to listen to that interview, man. That's a story that needs... and no one interviewed that woman at all. No one's interviewed her before me or after me. You know, so that's a great story.
How many people...
We got a case right now.
What was that?
We got a case right now in San Diego. We got a case where there's a guy has a preschool. His wife has a preschool. He gets busted taking photos up women's skirts at like a thrift store, and then the cops look through his phone and they find all these child porn pictures on it. And it turns out his ex-wife, who he's living with, runs a daycare. Wow. You know, and that's a theme that seems to go through these two. They infiltrate daycare. Ted Gunderson had the Finder's report where, you know, it almost has a similar vein to what's going on here in San Diego, and there's no arrest of the wife or anybody else in the home, only him.
Yeah, Gunderson was Gunderson was McMartin, not Finders, but we had Epstein, not Epstein. We had Rothstein came on the show, and he worked on the Finders case. In fact, he sent me some police reports on it that I have. But we should put that stuff up in the members section, because you know what? I should put all that stuff up there. I want to build up the members section too, because a lot of these people I talk to off the air, they got all kinds of documents. Get this, man! That woman Kelly Bonaski too. She talked to that guy Peterson in prison. And he sent her a letter by mistake where he confessed to the thing with the where he was trying to knock off the prosecutor. Drew Peterson.
By accident.
By accident, he sent it to her. She was supposed to, because he was talking. He was talking to all these different women. So he sent her a letter. He meant to send to somebody else, and she sent me a scanned copy of the letter. I got it. It's not even in court. The DA's
right on, man. Right on, man.
I know, it's crazy. I got it. The DA doesn't even want it. So who the hell knows? Well, but go ahead, guys.
And there's so much
to shift focus a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was researching the voodoo, you know, because the voodoo seems to be tied to a lot of this stuff. You know, it seemed to be absorbed into a lot of the, you know, the Golden Dawn and these rich people, whatever. And it turns out voodoo went from Africa to Haiti. And when it was in Haiti, it blended with the French Masons, the slave owners. They blended their French magic with the voodoo, and then the voodoo went to Cuba, and I figured you being having roots in Cuba, you would be really interested in that aspect of it. And then from Cuba, it went to to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And it's interesting in that new documentary that came out on Scientology that L. Ron Hubbard, when he kidnapped his kid, he took his kid to Cuba, where she was kept in some cage. You know, according to the documentary, that she was kept in a cage by like mentally ill people in Cuba. So you've got an actual connection between New Orleans, Cuba, and Haiti with voodoo.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everybody knows that there's a little bit of credence. There might be a little bit of credence that L. Ron Hubbard was involved not only in the Golden Dawn, but there might be some voodoo connections with all that too.
Everyone knows. Yeah, people know there's some voodoo in New Orleans. I mean, it's sort of a meme about like how like everything you just said. I've heard. Yeah, you're right about the Haitian. Cuban, and also, it turns to Santeria.
If you listen to the old Jim Rothstein interviews, he talks about he got to debrief the top Satanist in New York, and I believe that there was some ties to Cuba with that too. I can't remember if she was the actual one that was the lover of Castro, but I mean, you've got a heavy voodoo presence in all this going on.
Yes. The Illuminati seems to just pick up whatever works to them, you know?
Wait, are you talking about Marita Lorenz?
Yeah, I think that might have been her name.
Yeah, the girlfriend of, what's his name, Frank Sturgis.
Yeah, because some of this information you have to piece together because they don't, when they present it, they don't present it all at once in the same thread.
Yeah.
So he talked about debriefing her and that there was ties to Cuba.
Yeah, well, she was Castro's girlfriend. Yeah, if it's the one we're thinking of. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of that witchcraft and stuff in Cuba. You know, my mother used to talk about all these people and say, "Well, she's a bruja." You know, she's a brujera. You know, do that stuff. And also, too, we had in our family these distant relatives that would have kids that had like epilepsy and stuff like that, and these kids were like kept in a cage. You know, we had it was like a cousin, I guess, of mine, who I guess she was like retarded or something, and she was kept naked in a playpen. And she was like a woman, like a 20-year-old woman. Yeah, and we used to go to her apartment in the Bronx, and you know, can you imagine? I was a kid. You know, I was like 5 years old. I said, I don't want to go in that apartment.
Yeah, that's pretty traumatizing.
Yeah.
And that's like that. That's like this like comedic scene from that movie Borat. You know, I keep my sister in cage. Like, oh man, shoo, that's crazy.
What it almost looked like in that movie, he was trying to compromise Ron Paul. I mean, we talk a lot about human compromise on the show. The scene where Sacha Baron Cohen drops his pants in front of the presidential candidate. I mean, come on. They're obviously trying to discredit him, make a joke of him.
I've never seen that movie. Wow, they had Ron Paul in that.
Yeah, they did some little like camera type stuff. I tell you something else, man. With this Bernie Sanders, okay, just like with Ron Paul, okay, who obviously made a deal to get his kid running for president. You know, Ron Paul made a deal. It's no doubt in my mind. But Ron Paul, everyone was voting for him. He won every debate. He won every poll online and stuff like that. But they didn't let him be president. And they rubbed it in our face that way. And I predicted they're going to do the same thing with Bernie Sanders. Right now,
he has no chance of winning, man.
Well, no chance of winning, but that's what they want us. They want us to know. They want everybody supporting Bernie Sanders. He has the biggest crowds right now, you know, at his events, bigger than Hillary. But they want us to see, look, this is the popular guy, but watch, we're not going to let him win. Mm-hmm. You know, and because they want, it's all programmed, it's all part of it.
To break the spirit of the American people.
They're stating that there's going to be a woman president. I mean, now we're, you know, coming out with a dollar bill or whatever that's got a woman's picture on it. You know, I mean, that's great, but it seems like the timing's a little suspicious to start, you know, when Hillary Clinton might have a shot at being the president, to start putting, you know, women on dollar bills. It just seems like programming to me.
Yeah, well, we can debate on whether or not it has something to do with like the uptick in the popular mind with concepts such as like third wave feminism and things like that. But if anyone seriously thinks that Hillary Clinton isn't going to be the next president, which, I mean, I have no say in it. None of us are billionaires. We don't have any say in it. If you look at the GOP ticket, the fact that there's almost 20 people running for the opposite party in a clown car, where you have Donald Trump immediately in like completely like saying all Mexican immigrants are rapists and drug addicts. You know what I'm saying? Like it's total theater.
Like they're giving you no choice, almost. Like they're giving you no choice but to vote for her. Like, are you really going to vote for all these idiots? And you're like, well, I mean, seems like the only sensible choice, I guess. Or, like that's what they're trying to, yeah.
The thing is about Trump, though, it's no secret to anybody in New York who Trump is, man. And the guy's a total fraud and a con man and a thief and a pervert. I'm going to get sued by the guy. But, the thing is, man, he doesn't run any of those companies, man. And there's even been lawsuits where companies that he started, where the board of directors would come in and force him to stop running the company. That's the only way they would leave him on and let him make any money from the company. His bankruptcies. The guy's got dozens and dozens of bankruptcies, lawsuits of fraud. He had a Trump college. The state of New York hadn't made him shut it down. One con game, one scam, one lie after another. All kinds of scandals with this guy. And he's running for president, and no one brings up one thing? Nothing.
Not just that, but the way they portray him in the media is as like a businessman that I've heard people say things like, the difference between Trump and a homeless man is if you give a homeless man $1 million, he'll be broke in a week. And if you give Trump on the street, he'll become a millionaire in a week. And come on, really, like, this rhetoric of these types of people that they put on TV, these fake conservatives, I mean, all they have to do is say that they're a Christian. Mind you, their actions.
If Trump's father dies again and lets him inherit all his money, then he'll be a millionaire again.
Hey, Ed, man, what's kind of interesting about Donald Trump is his first big media rollout wasn't what is it, Celebrity Boss or whatever, all that stupid media stuff.
Yeah.
The first big mention of him is actually Bret Easton Ellis's novel American Psycho, where it's written where Patrick Bateman admires Donald Trump, and it's written from the perspective of, Donald Trump's a rising venture capitalist who I aim to be like. Say what you will about Bret Easton Ellis, but Less Than Zero and American Psycho, I think, are more reality than most people would choose to accept, especially Less Than Zero.
What do you think?
That book nailed almost everything.
I mean, it seems like it's all fake. It's already predetermined, and even if we were to get a real candidate in there, they have the electoral colleges that'll immediately overturn anybody that the people would put in. I mean, you were a yippie. I mean, how much fight do you think we really have against these people politically?
One thing that gives me hope, though, Ed, is this Epstein case, because you can tie 4 people in this race to Epstein, right? You have Clinton was in the phone book, and then you had the governor. The governor was Jeb Bush while the trial was going on. Then you have Trump, who's saying nothing but nice things about Epstein. I think I left someone out. No, I guess maybe it was just 3.
Well, Epstein actually donated $3 million to the Clinton Foundation.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Hey, Ed, you know what, man?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Ed, man. My bad, bro.
Okay, go ahead.
But I actually have a Svengali-like prediction, man, with the Dennis Hastert thing coming out with pedophilia being linked almost exclusively to the GOP and being tied to a narrative of so-called moralists being hypocrites. I guarantee you, Lindsey Graham, man, watch his campaign. I guarantee you a sex scandal of some sort is going to come out against this guy. Lindsey Graham is the one to watch on this particular issue. Mark my words, I'm putting it down right here on the air. Watch Lindsey Graham, because that guy would have no chance of becoming a nominee irregardless. If anything, he's being set up to be put out there to become a pariah, and I guarantee you it's going to be a sex scandal of perhaps something very dubious.
Well,
and I just wanted to lay that out there.
There's our prediction from Josh the Greek. If you want to place your bets, Josh is taking the line on this. We're just joined by...
I'm putting 20 to 2. That's the odds, 20 to 2.
We're joined by area code... Wait, 1 second.
Hey, Ed.
1 second. We're joined by area code...
Ed.
Go ahead.
Do you need callers?
What? We just got another caller. We're just joined by a caller.
Yeah, it's Elizabeth in Tennessee. The chick that's like, doing all your ads on Facebook. Or not Facebook, but Craigslist. Tula Bean.
Oh, yeah. Hey, how are you?
Well, it's been 2 hours, and I just popped it up, and I saw you needed callers. I thought, hey, I'll try them now. Nobody's ever going to be on now. We're on now. Wow. Well, you rock. What are we talking about tonight?
Well, boy, a little bit of everything. We were just talking about Hassert, and his case is another guy who was Speaker of the House. Now, you think this would be a bigger story, right? Speaker of the House.
Right.
He's arrested for making payoffs. How this guy can't get his hands on cash.
Oh, that guy from like Illinois or Ohio or some crap like that. That dude.
I'm not sure exactly where he's from, but he was Speaker of the House. And you got to think, now here's this guy who has if he has $3 million to pay off money, right? And he can't come up with a way how to get that out in cash without tipping off his bank, and they're making reports to the...
Come on, they're all pedophiles. Once he gets to that level, I mean, come on, they're all pedophiles. Or, some other kind of weird sex crap,
Okay,
you don't get to that level unless you're indoctrinated.
We're actually joined by another caller, area code 509. 509, what do you got to say?
Hi, Ed. I'm so interested in knowing about what happened with those escaped prisoners. Now, I know you had some guests scheduled, I think, last week or the week before, who had some inside info about the escaped prisoners in upstate New York.
Yeah, we're
What's
working
going
on
on
it.
there?
Well, that's my guest. What happened is there's a lot of internet. It rains up there, okay? So they lose their internet. But some things I could tell you about this prison escape, because my guest, she has a boyfriend or a husband. I'm not exactly sure who's in that prison, okay? He's serving time in that prison. She lives up there right next to the prison. So right away, the first thing she said was, there's no way these guys escaped from that prison. And this idea about how they were lying down and they put clothes underneath their blankets to look like bodies.
Yeah.
And then they had a hole dug in the back of their cell. This is impossible without everybody knowing about it. So now we're
hearing... So is this a false flag or what?
I don't know. It's on the false. They walked them out of the prison. Okay. Obviously, these guys, they killed them for a reason, because they want to keep their mouth shut. Okay. If they were in on the deal, they would be doing news conferences, these escaped prisoners, or they would let them escape forever. So they're killing these guys, I think, because it was a corrupt prison.
Okay, so if they did that, what do they know? I mean, really, what do they know?
Where are they now?
Yeah.
Well, they killed one of them tonight.
One piece of information from that they show you on the news, that they show you that pipe that has that rectangle cut in it.
Right.
There's no way to get a cut like that on a pipe without having some kind of bleed over it on the angles. That's why I kind of wish that McGowan was on tonight, because he does construction. And you look at how precise that pipe is cut, there's no way two prisoners escaping from prison could make those perfect right angle cuts with no bleed over in the corners or anything. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, even with really good tools.
Ed, if I could say something, just my observation, as far as the whole circus they put out in the media. Immediately, is it Governor Cuomo?
Yeah.
Is that who it is? Okay.
Yeah.
He had to go and make a spectacle and put himself next to that pipe and make a big spectacle to make it look like it was also real. That was really kind of suspicious to me. Like, why is there such a big hoopla? What is this? Why are they making a big spectacle, a media spectacle?
Because what they're doing is deflecting against, some law they're passing or something to do with underhanded.
Right.
I mean, that's
so. Ed, I know that you spoke with this girl. What does she have to say as far as her inside information?
Okay.
What is her hypothesis?
Well, she thinks they were walked out of there. It's a corrupt prison where these guys, they were paying off the guards with these paintings, and they were selling the paintings. Obviously, something else was going on, too. Because if you notice, too, one of these guards is walking around in a bulletproof vest. So there's a lot more going on here because it's a corrupt prison. Okay, and these guys.
Right.
And by the way, too, with the thing with Cuomo's son, back when I was in the nightclub business and running around with those guys, Cuomo's sons were running around with the same people I was running around with. Okay, wait. Somebody has some music playing in the background?
No.
So, but
sorry, it was just.
And if you notice,
walking in the other room, I'm done now.
Okay, if you notice too, that where these two prisoners have been hiding out in one of these hunting cabins, that cabin is owned by guards from that prison as well. It's
Oh, really?
Yes, these guys.
Where'd you read that, Ed? What's that from?
It's all over the news tonight. They had a film of the cabin where these guys were hiding out in. They let a reporter go in there and walk around, open up the cabinets. There's all food in there. These guys have been eating like high on the hog. They've been eating great. And the past 3 weeks, living in this cabin. Now they got guns, supposedly. But yeah, I knew they were going to get shot. There's no way they can let them go. Cuomo, the Cuomo family are a bunch of gangsters themselves and all hooked up to all kinds of crap. The whole family for years.
Mm-hmm.
So
the total is at this moment 1 dead and 1 still on the loose, right, Ed?
Right. When the show started, I haven't been watching.
Well, now I read about an hour and a half or so ago. I think they have the other one cornered. That's what I read. I don't know. Maybe it's how it changed. It's so fluid. Who knows? They don't know what's going on. But that's what I read then, about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, I even heard too on one of the news stations that there was a second shootout with the other guy.
Yeah.
But she was saying though, the guest who's coming on was saying a couple of things. One is that the cops that had martial law in this town are being rude with everybody and just giving everybody a really hard time. That was one thing. And she said that they had to be walked out of there. There's no way that this big fat guy climbed through a 12-inch tunnel pipe. That's just crazy.
I know.
The guy's too
big. And, don't you think it's suspicious, the whole media hype around that and how the governor was right there the next day posing right next to the hole in the wall, posing right next to the hole in the sewer pipe or whatever. That just seems so staged and just ridiculous.
Well, the thing with that, I can almost, because it was like a Shawshank story. That's how they were billing it.
Yeah.
It was kind of like an entertainment thing. So
it's a program.
But
it's a program. It's a Shawshank program. And what are they hiding while they have our attention on this? That's what I'm asking. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah.
Now, what are they hiding?
It's a possibility, but I don't think that this theory that they have to stage these big events in order to draw our attention away from everything else. I don't see, even when these things have our attention, they still do it anyway. What's the big deal? They can have our attention, but attention. Who cares of our attention? No one does a damn thing about anything anymore, or even complains.
Yeah, it's all about corruption. Period.
Yeah. But it also seems like what comes after.
Ed, it's just bread and circus. Ed, it's bread and circus. It's just giving the masses another great story to sink their teeth into, to keep them busy. It's all about just keeping them busy, to keep them off of the important stuff. It's just giving them, let's just feed them garbage. Feed them garbage and they'll fall for anything. Or they won't even worry about, the meat of it. Just give them the potatoes, That, in my opinion, that's what it is. The important stuff is skewed. It's always misreported, and it's always given a certain spin to look like it's something other than it is, to make the authorities look like the good guys, and there's always a bad guy, a man in black. It's a typical Western plot of the old movies. It's just too obvious anymore.
You got to wonder how long this has been going on, because you look at like the Manson murders and stuff like that, a lot of that seems fake and staged. It's like, how long have they been like doing this?
No,
I think I'm too old for this conversation because I really think I'm way too old for this conversation because this stuff's been going on for a lot longer than Manson. I mean, I was born in '61. It was happening way before I was born. Way before.
Well, exactly. The point I was going to make was that, you know, who knows even in the newspapers when stuff is reported back in the 1800s how accurate it was if the Illuminati's had a hand in all this stuff.
It wasn't, because if you check history, you know, and who ran that, it was that dude that had that palace right now. I can't think of his name right now, but there was like 3 of them that ran the whole, you know, the whole paper thing.
But a couple of things here, though. Guys, Manson really happened.
Yeah.
Manson murders happened. You know.
And not only that, Ed, man, I got to step on you.
I agree with you on there, man. Yeah, no problem there.
Go ahead, Josh.
But still, the whole thing is,
what was the precipitating event?
She wasn't dead.
You know, what was the precipitating event?
True, definitely, but at the same time, with these things, it has to be recognized. It has to be recognized that the whole idea of, it's all crisis actors or crisis victims, like, you have something like the Manson murders, but you don't realize that about 25 people died in and around that trial. Bruce Davis was going around bumping off people, you know, and that's why he was eventually convicted for murdering Shorty Shea. There were many murders concurrent with almost any serial killer crime that if they don't try and lump it in with a major serial killer crime, they'll just completely ignore it, you know? How many victims of the Atlanta child murders were never found, you know? How many young boys disappeared in and around Chicago around the time John Wayne Gacy was arrested? How many gay men disappeared from out of town in Milwaukee when Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested? The whole thing was like these prisoners escaping. It's not like these prisoners never existed and they were Hollywood actors set up by the controlled media to distract us. Like, it's not hard for people to wrap their minds around the fact that it's all corrupt. And it's staged, yes, but these people are real people. If you give a person on death row the opportunity to run wild, they're going to run wild, you know?
I got you there, brother. You know, it's just the media is just another way to, like, you know, flake off. But, oh, no, I'm totally with you. There's insane people doing insane ceremonies all over.
Well, just look at your last interview with the son of the CIA agent. He immediately got his ears pinned back when he thought somebody would have recognized him. These people that we might think that they're killing, they might just be changing their identities and putting them somewhere else.
Oh, who was that? I just heard about that this morning somewhere else. I think maybe it was Clyde Lewis or something. Who was that didn't get ears back?
That was E. Howard Hunt.
E. Howard Hunt, yeah. Oh, no, yeah, I was listening to that this morning. I'm sorry. I was at work, too. I'm sorry. Okay.
But E. Howard Hunt, with all fairness to St. John Hunt's father, E. Howard Hunt was himself an admitted killer.
Yeah.
If you had government backing and you had the opportunity to change your facial recognition patterns, even among old photographs, if you have to go do other covert options, they're not going to give that option to the people they call victims. They give that option to the killers themselves. The killers are the people that you never see. The victims are real. People will actually die at, like, I think the whole crisis actor thing was created by, like, reactionary people to discredit the whole truth movement. Sure, there's doubles and everything, but do you think if these people are so hardcore into what you believe to be like Satanism and all these things, they're not going to kill people? They're just going to hire some fake actors to play dead instead of actually getting the raw power of killing men, women, and children? Come on, man.
Yeah, but these are
just so ignorant.
Too, though. These are assets that they spent a lot of money developing since childhood. They're not going to kill off all their assets.
And it doesn't.
They're
And it doesn't also.
They're going to change their identity and put them somewhere else.
It also wouldn't be either or. Whether sometimes it could just be case by case, and one they could use 5 crisis actors and kill 1 person, and people are jumping on the crisis actors, and all the crisis actors saying that the whole thing didn't happen when one father out there might be actually grieving for their families. And then in another case, they might kill maybe 6 or 7 people, and then 1 crisis actor, and then just make that, just discredit that whole thing, and just play with these operations, and then do things after them, like during the Boston thing, or during the Dahmer, not the Dahmer, but the LAPD cop that went crazy out there and they were searching for, or in this case with the prisoners. Yes, in this case with the prisoners, it's what they do after, and they measure
about the Dorner
people's reaction.
Case?
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the Dorner case is that when they cornered him in that cabin, the actual sheriff that was there, I heard a report on the news, he was the actual coroner, too. So you've actually got the sheriff is the coroner. So, I mean, how easy it is to cover up anything at that point when you're both people.
But what I'm trying to get at is, like, when it comes to, like, high-profile serial killer cases, for someone to say, like, oh, the Tate LaBianca murders never happened, do you think, like, they would really get rid of Jay Sebring, you know? Dude, if Jay Sebring, Wojciech Krakowski, and Abigail Folger were still walking around, those companies and the people that they were friends with would know it. Jay Sebring worked with Frank Sinatra, JFK, Marilyn Monroe, everybody. They're not just going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to totally get rid of the fact that you're running cocaine and acid out of your hair salon. They're not going to get rid of like that just to like, oh, now you're a Filipino, go over to the Philippines and we're going to act like you're really dead. That's just, that's not reality. That's not how covert operations work, you know?
Her boyfriend went to Brazil, and he reported in a Brazilian paper that she was still alive.
Well, can I just say
Sharon
something
Tate.
in general about this whole business about the crisis actors? Okay, if these are these major operations where they're doing all this, where they can pull off these huge operations like Sandy Hook and these kind of things, and yet these bumbling fools on YouTube are the people that are exposing all this. And half of these YouTube videos, they don't like the way someone's reacting or someone's smiling or some kind of nonsense. And they just repeat over and over again, well, this is fake, this is fake, this is fake. None of that stuff is real investigation. You know, it really isn't. You know, other things like Boston bombing, you know, you kind of got some elements here with FBI agents getting killed and stuff. You know, there's things there. But what is not going on is that us in this alternative media are just brilliant researchers, and then we're spotting all this stuff over and over and over again that's all fake. And we also have the conclusion that it's to take away our guns. You know, it's just nuts, man. You know, and it's a trap. For us to be falling down the same bunny trail every single time. Well, this is fake. It's crisis actors. Look at this, blah, blah, blah. Here's a YouTube video. And doing the same thing over and over again. It's because they want us doing that. Am I making sense?
Absolutely. And the thing is,
they're steering the people in a certain direction. I mean, that's without a doubt. They're steering, but it doesn't mean that they're killing everybody. I mean, if you go on the internet, you can find a lot of good information.
Well, let's break it
down. Yeah, but you can also find a lot of absolute
people.
lies and propaganda. To say that just because Abigail Folger's boyfriend said that she was alive in Brazil, how do you compare that to the actual video footage of a woman slashed to death on her front lawn in the grass? But you ignore the fact that the blood trails don't add up. You know, you're distracted by the fact that, oh, it may be fake instead of the actual story doesn't match up, and therefore the conclusion that was reached by the original prosecution is a cover-up for something much deeper. That's what's sad, because you're throwing away real conspiracy theory for something that doesn't make any sense. You know what I'm saying? It's just ridiculous.
Well, how does it not make sense if they're faking the news now? Why would that be real and the news that they're giving us now is fake? That doesn't even make sense.
Hey, listen, it's basically this. It's trauma-based mind control.
Yeah.
It's all a matter of every single day they're going to present you with something that is horrible and awful and make you decide in your mind whose side you're on. And then every so often there'll be... And every so often they'll confront you with something so awful and so big that you really have to assess yourself. You do. Even if you identify certain things as fake or question them, there's that emotional part, the trauma part of your brain that is affected. And that's what they want.
But that doesn't become true, though, when you know it's fake. When it's fake, there is no trauma to you as a viewer.
But how can you know it's fake unless you've done due diligence? I've read coroner's report. I've seen photographs that have never been released to the media. I know the fact that they never say in Helter Skelter that Charles Manson went back to the house. You know, it's admitted in multiple books by himself that he went back there. It's a cover-up within a cover-up, you know? It's not that the government fakes it, you know? Like, why would the government fake something?
If they can humanly compromise politicians, then we know that these Satanists have coroners that work with them, these mortuary homes and stuff. I mean...
We know that.
Like Harvard,
but the masses don't know that. We know that. You know that. You do that research, but the masses don't. And so, unfortunately, you're outnumbered, you know, because they're going to keep feeding the masses whatever the masses are consuming. And it's trauma.
But when
trauma. They need the trauma.
All that trauma
the trauma porn.
Okay, wait, everybody. We're joined by another caller, area code 281. What do you have to add?
Oh, it's just Patrick. I got Charles, but I one thing that reminds me is when you had the guest that did the research on the O.J. Simpson thing. I mean, how many people still think the O.J. thing either happened the way they say it did, or that he completely, you know, there's two stories that people think, oh, he didn't do it, or that he did. But then there's the other one, the one where you come up after doing due diligence, like that research that you had on the documentary or something that had to do with O.J. I mean, so many inconsistencies in a lot of these stories, but you're right, not everybody knows these things. And it's kind of frustrating, like the stuff that dave-mcgowan talks about, anything like that. People don't know about those things. It's frustrating.
Well, Ed, who was everybody on the O.J. trial? What were they? What religious belief were they?
Scientologists, almost every single one of them.
Yep.
That's a little suspicious.
Yeah,
I'd say.
Yeah, that whole thing is so scary. Boy, this caller here knows all my shows, man. You studying everything, huh?
Yeah, I've been rotating a few podcasts. Yeah, and it's great. I think it's stuff, man.
Yeah, and in all fairness, that T.H. Johnson episode is absolutely riveting. He knows his stuff. It's one of the most compelling episodes I think you've done yet, man.
Well, he knows everybody.
If people haven't heard it, it's great.
Yeah, he knows wonderful. Everybody in the case. He knows Darden, he knows OJ, he knows everybody. You know, and he got into all the baby mama drama. He got into all this stuff. The guy had all the gossip in the background too, man. It goes on for like 6 hours, that show.
Ed, do you believe that Khloe Kardashian is OJ's kid, man?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And you see how that particular trial polarized our nation as far as race?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And now they're bringing that up again. They're bringing that up again.
It sure did, boy. It's all on purpose. It's all on purpose. Polarize us and divide us.
You know what I got to get a hold of? It's really interesting. Cindy Garvey, who testified in the case, and O.J. even says later on, he says, I wasn't friends with Cindy Garvey. She wasn't part of our circle. But Cindy Garvey testified in the case just because she was there at the recital, you know. And when she was getting divorced from Steve Garvey, who was a Dodger, a Los Angeles Dodger baseball player, she said in her divorce papers that all these guys, Bruce Jenner, O.J. Simpson, all these guys were involved in dealing coke.
Yep.
You know? And I got to go and dig up those court papers, man, because I can't. They're not online anywhere. I remember reading this in a paper when she was talking about it. So I definitely got to go pull that stuff up.
It also seems like a lot of
there's a big connection between their cocaine and their religious beliefs and their vampirism. It ties in heavily. I mean, of course, you know, you have the money aspect and everything, and the secret society aspect, but all the cocaine it seems to tie into their weird vampirism.
It's interesting.
And not only that, but to the LAPD and thus its connections to the CIA. The time period matches, you know? If anything, they would have been kingpins in that area.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, according to Alex Constantine, they were. And that they were hooked up
they were hooked up with
the guys who shot Roy Raden.
But things like that is what I'm talking about, like actually getting into the nitty-gritty of real life, the underworld, how things connect, is a far cry from saying that Nicole Brown Simpson actually had, like, extensive plastic surgery done and she's now living in Tibet. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's dead because she involved herself with the wrong people, made the wrong decisions, and she ended up getting a knee to her back and her throat cut as a finishing move. That's what happens when you mess with these people. They don't have the time to play around because real blood is actually what they want. If you believe in secret societies, then they actually need sacrifice.
Amount of money that's put into these people. There's a tremendous amount of money and time put in developing these mind control assets. You're not going to just waste them. I mean, if you read the literature, you'll find out.
Who was the mind control asset in this situation? Who are you referring to?
Probably O.J.
O.J., that's who you're saying was the mind control asset in this whole situation?
No.
Well, can you imagine if he thinks he's guilty? I mean, that would be the most effective way to do it, to make him think.
Well,
it wouldn't be Nicole, or...
A couple of things about OJ's youth. He was involved in a street gang in Los Angeles. His father was a female impersonator, too, who died of AIDS. But he was also he was in Aquino's backyard. He was right there, where Colonel Aquino was running San Francisco. This is where OJ came out of,
And his mother only got her job because Jim Jones put her there, basically.
Right.
They may put time and effort into these people, but at the same time, what's more important to people, if you actually study the occult, they don't care about your life. They care about your energy, what you can give to them. You know what I'm saying? When the time comes where you have to die, you're going to die, They're not going to waste extra money to keep you alive where you can come back. They're going to harvest your energy, your essence, your ka, as you say, if you actually know anything about, like, magic or esotericism. Ka is the energy that is absorbed when a life essence leaves its body. These things are what feed into the overall esoteric, bad, terrible conspiracy that owns us. They don't, they don't care about this false flag stuff.
They kill people. They're good. I believe that they kill people. I'm just saying that their assets are the ones that usually aren't the ones that are being killed because all the time and money put into them.
It's like the mob, man. Do you think Alfred Anastasia got plastic surgery because he was an asset to the 5 families? You know what I'm saying? Like, when the time comes, if you're Muammar Gaddafi or if you're Patrice Lumumba, you may be an asset to the American government at one point or another, but either way, you're either going to be sodomized by a bayonet and shot with your own golden gun, or you're going to be tied to a tree, shot in the face, and melted with acid. It happens.
Then, okay, let me ask you a question then. Our latest, magic hat thing with this whole racist shooting in is it North Carolina or South Carolina? I don't remember which one.
South Carolina. I live in North Carolina. We would.
Okay, I want to give you my opinion. I don't think this is. I think that these killings happened. These people were murdered.
Yeah. In my opinion, if you want to hear my opinion on it, I think Clementa Pinckney was targeted for assassination. That Dylan, whatever kid, lived 110 miles away from that church and purposely drove there on a Wednesday night, which is, I am a Christian myself. I know that here in the South, Wednesday night is Bible study night. If you want to find an unarmed target of people, you go there. He sat there, and then he shot Clementa Pinckney on purpose. That's the one person. The other 8 people in there don't matter, but Clementa Pinckney was supposed to be a new civil rights, rising icon in there, and that's completely what is lost in the media.
Is this Pinckney related to the Reverend Pinckney who's in jail right now?
No connection at all.
Oh, okay. I was really wondering that. Because that kind of put my radar up.
Speaking over you, ma'am. My bad.
No, that's okay. But, and I've been seeing this thing online where they think it's this one particular actor who was on Star Trek. And, it's a crisis actor. It's all fake. And it really makes me sick in a way. Because here's the deal. Things like this do happen so often. Now, this little lunatic, he could have been an actual serious racist with, that kind of weirdness to want to go hurt people. Or maybe he was a mind control victim. But see, we cannot, every single episode that happens may not be a government psyop. Because government, now wait a minute, government psyops, one thing about them is they make other people freak out and do weird shit. Okay?
Amen.
They do. So all of this constant race baiting, racial division, all of this stuff has been just building up in our country. A lot of it, psyops. A lot of it has been played up where it shouldn't have been. A lot of it found racism was when there really wasn't any. Okay? So it's pushing these little lunatics over the edge. And we have to be really careful about that. We can't call everything a psyop. We can't call everything, unorganic, because I kind of think this one was. This little sumbitch was a crazy little dude, He was lost, and he went and hurt people, for whatever reason. We have to be careful in the alternative media to not make ourselves look like asses. And I think this is making a lot of people,
but there's a legitimate aspect. When the
I know there is. I know there is. I know there's a legitimate aspect.
When they're 4 or 5 years old.
Go ahead.
I know there's a legitimate aspect. We have to be discerning. We have to look for ourselves. We have to try to see for ourselves. But look at all the programming, the trauma-based programming that's been going on for the last 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And it's all to do with race. They're trying to divide us. And so they're making these little lunatics who are low IQ, low brow. Look at him. He's a little idiot nightmare. They're buying into this. And so they're snapping. But it's been pushed. It's been pushed on purpose.
Why would you believe the television when it's been lying for so long on so many important things like 9/11?
Well, see, I don't believe the television. I don't even look at the television. No. I don't look at television.
Some of the programming that
the media was in with.
Well, no, but I can
some of the programming that has
through these
down the
years.
pipeline for
It's been coming down the pipeline for years. This is pumped into our national psyche. And this isn't going to be the first time. It's not going to be the last time.
They've been trying to move the characteristics away from the Islamic terrorists. They're trying to move it more towards the Christian fundamentalist, gun enthusiast, most of the time Southern, most of the time. They're trying to make it, because that's all that's left. I mean, you have...
Not really, though.
No, you're right.
Yeah,
no, I know
both
what you mean, but
Christian
but
and Islamic fundamentalism at the same time when you consider that ISIS gets equal airtime as an individual going into a church and shooting people.
But
my problem becomes when you say that these people didn't exist.
Normal people don't do that.
Normal people don't do that, but at the same time, here's one thing the alternative media needs to confront. Right, we believe in conspiracies, right? We all think there's a one-world government, there's Illuminati, but it's all cohesive. That's not how reality works. In reality, you have a bunch of major power structures vying to be the one uniting factor. Let me tell you this right now. I have friends locked up in southern various penitentiaries from Florida to Georgia to South Carolina. There is a organized white supremacist gang. You can recognize them because they have spiderweb tattoos. Every fly represents a person murdered on there, and they're mostly COs. Right before this individual goes out and shoots people, he is locked up on a drug charge, and then comes out, randomly gets a gun, drives 110 miles, and assassinates a person that is considered one of the rising civil rights figures out there. People are looking at a conspiracy that has been outdated since the 1990s, but they're not ready to dig in and look at everything from every angle.
Okay, so now let me counter.
White supremacist conspiracy. It's impossible to deny, you know?
I need to counter because Ed will testify. Sharpton has worked for who for all these years?
The Republicans, in my opinion.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay,
well,
so
has
what
anyone
it
heard of PATCOM?
It's
has
both
anyone
sides.
heard of Operation?
It's both sides. This is chaos. There's no rhyme or reason. They're creating chaos to divide us. There's no right or wrong. There's no black or white. It's all about dividing us. You don't see that? They're working both ends. They're working every end.
Yeah.
They're working the Mexican end. Sure. They're working the Chinese end. Any end you can think of. They're working the gay end.
A lot of the plots have been FBI foiled plots that were FBI, not plans, but, they get in touch with these people online or something, just kind of push them, egg them on. Hey, wouldn't it be, how about this? Or aren't you angry about that? We can supply you with this or that. And then just come in at the last moment and swoop in. Has anyone ever heard of the Operation
Ed that talked about Smooth Criminal, how they recruit directly out of the prisons, and then they let them out of the prisons to go do their CIA stuff.
That's the other thing I was thinking. Well, what if they broke these guys out, they did a killing somewhere, and now they snuffed them out?
That's exactly what I think is going on, man. Right on. I give you a high five through the phone, bro.
Wow.
Because it's not like they're hiring actors from the SAG to play criminals. These people actually exist, but they're being duped into thinking that they're getting a good ride from good COs, when in reality they're being set up to be slaughtered on national TV for our consumption. That's the fucking... Sorry, Ed. Yeah. That's the effing conspiracy. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Well, I think I heard somewhere that Dylan Stone Roof was arrested under some drug charge or something like that. That Dylan Stone Roof was arrested for some drug charge. I mean, who knows if, they get some guy like that and if anyone's heard of Operation PATCOM, I first heard it in Oklahoma City Noble Lie documentary, where how they try to infiltrate Elohim City. I mean, I've heard some people describe that maybe what we have now is a virtual Elohim City or something like that. Where they could just who goes into the Alex Jones forums and gets mad about this, or who goes into the forums or likes the more. The Islamic Moors Facebook page, and who gets on, who goes to defend Tesla, the Boston bomber, or, who can they push? Whose buttons can they, who can they infiltrate what?
Well, there's paid trolls. There is paid government trolls. That is mainstream news. Yeah. Everybody knows that, and every single faction on the entire planet has them. I mean, that's, Internet Warfare 101 is you get your troll.
Yeah, this I guess you're going to have on Ed about COINTELPRO, the guys who broke in to try and burn all the draft cards and found the COINTELPRO documents.
Yeah, she's coming on in a couple of weeks. I forget her name. I think it's Margaret or something like that. She wasn't one of the burglars. She wrote the book for the actual burglars who did it. Who's she? I can pull up her name right now real quick. I'll tell you a story real quick because we're getting to the end of the show. Is in real life, I was asked to investigate a murder, and the guy's son was murdered, and the guy who murdered the guy's son was a prisoner who was out on a day furlough, and he got the gun from the police evidence locker, and then he killed this guy's son. And this was down in Florida. You might remember, too, there was other stories down there in Florida where they were letting prisoners out of prison with fake paperwork. Right?
So is that a smooth criminal kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, this stuff is going on all the time.
Oh, yeah.
The prisons are, the prisons are the most corrupt places anywhere. And by the way, too, you want to really laugh, too, with this case up there in Denimore, New York. There's a video on YouTube you can watch. There's a live feed from Greta Van Susteren. She's interviewing some people outside the prison. And you see behind her, a guy comes walking along behind her, carrying a bag. He walks up to the prison. They lower a rope. This is live on TV. They lower a rope. He ties it to the bag, and they pull the bag up in a rope.
Yeah, I read about that. What was it? Well, what is that?
No one knows. But obviously, they're bringing contraband into the prison.
Or maybe on the way back out.
Or lunch or something, you know?
Hey, man, I just have...
How about an update from Timothy Olmsted, the Florida case?
Yeah. I'm going to be bringing him back. He's a really cool guy. He sends me his press releases all the time, okay? And this guy's... They got plots to kill him and stuff, man. The FBI came and raided his office, took all his computers and equipment stuff. After he was on our show the last time, they had arrest warrants for him. This guy.
Well, if you go to his website and read some of his material, he makes it sound like who's that woman on CNN that's always top mom?
Yeah, Nancy Grace.
Nancy Grace. Sorry.
Yeah, Nancy Grace. He makes it sound like Nancy Grace was part of this child kidnapping ring to actually make money on TV. Promoting the kidnapped child to solicit donations. If you read his internet stuff, because Nancy Grace's that woman that hides kidnapped children, she's affiliated with him. Go on his website and read his stuff. It's pretty amazing. I can understand why he'd be in deep water. He's doing the right thing, though.
Well, you look into Nancy Grace's background. She got fired from the DA's office for falsifying evidence.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Evidence. What was it she falsified?
What was that?
What was it? What did she falsify?
I don't know, because she was a prosecutor and she was screwing around with stuff. Yeah, and Nancy Grace.
Well, I'll tell you, all prosecutors falsify evidence. Every single one of them.
Yeah.
It's all a stretch of truth. It's all a big lie. You know. They just have to convince whoever the jury, the stupid jurors who know nothing, or whatever, whether it be a grand jury, the way they spin it, or a jury of peers. It's all a bunch of lies. It's skewed. It's, it's all problematic. There's no justice. I'll tell you right now, there's no justice.
True. And what's weird about all this stuff is, like, when you look at Nancy Grace, honestly, like, she has, like, those eyes that I was talking about, like, someone who's been a lifelong, like, cocaine addict, where you can see...
Can I ask you guys something right now? I need to ask you guys something. Please, listen to me. Can I ask one question?
Mm-hmm.
We all know what a big bunch of liars... Anything you look at on the TV is going to be a lie. Why are you still looking at TV? That's what I want to know. I saw this so many years ago. I'm just a simple housewife, got me a bunch of kids, but it got to be so obvious. We cut the TV off. I don't even know how many years ago. Why do you guys still look? You cannot, that cannot be your yardstick. It cannot be your yardstick because it's all programming, and we can see the programming. You and I, and we can see it, but it can't be your yardstick anymore because you're still.
Well, it's not a yard. When you become awake of what's going on, you can see how they're herding the sheep through the TV because they got to herd mass groups of people, and they do that through the TV, so you can see which direction they're pointing people. And that's, that's one reason I watch TV.
Exactly. No, you're right. And for example, like I'm married. When I don't really like to watch a lot of these shows, but I mean, almost anything that my wife watches, whether there's this show called Pretty Little Liars, which is like this teen show, but it has things in there like some kind of weird pedophile network in there. Like there's all these kind of shows. Like you just be watching anything, and you're like, whoa, did they just slip that in there? And then you can mention it to a person that you otherwise wouldn't be able to relate any of this stuff to. They can be like, well, it's kind of like that show, Oh, yeah. Okay, well, you kind of get the point of it, and you can kind of form a little bit more of the idea. But otherwise, I mean, you just won't be able to relate at all. I mean, that's one of the reasons I watch.
No, there is still a way you can relate, and it's called reading. Every single piece of news... I get it through reading, and that's why I don't necessarily pronounce things right because I'm reading it. I've never heard it.
Us. Yes, that's us.
Now listen.
I think your books are any more honest, though. I mean, if
no, and they're not,
so long,
and there's still a lot of bullshit.
Too.
There's still so much bullshit, even with what you read. But when you read it, you are able to dissect that information a little bit better when you don't have the flicker rate. When you don't have the advertisement, when you don't have the whistles and the sounds and the, you know the bullshit, all that stuff that's going on in the background. I know you know what I'm talking about.
I can tell you through personal experience,
it's time to really unplug.
It's finding out what's going on by listening to YouTube videos, first-person YouTube videos. You can put a first-person YouTube video, and they can tell you their actual account of the story for like 2 hours instead of listening to a 30-second soundbite on the news. You can actually listen to all the details. So YouTube is a tremendous tool.
Or these interviews, like listening to Ted Rothstein, or like you're just like, wow. I mean, these are stories of people who have hit the streets, seeing these things firsthand. It blows your mind when you hear all these different guests that come up. Like, how is not everyone hearing about this? Like
that's very true. But at the same time, the way I look at it is media. With television is the same thing as film, which is the same thing as music, which is the same thing as literature. It is an art form that allows you to collect and then define your position upon which means that while it may be poison, you can filter out and discover what is in between there. I'll say this, Ed Offerman, man, Ed's been on there with Dr. Drew. I'm not going to say Ed Offerman's an Illuminati shill because he's worked with, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm friends with Catherine Timp, who does Fox News Red Eye. A friend that I know that I've danced with and played music with, Bridget Marie Todd. She works for MSNBC. These are just people that go into the business.
Or are you talking about Facebook friends?
No, I'm talking about a person that I actually know, went to college with, and have known in real life before Facebook actually existed.
Well,
these things aside, it's just media. Media is just a medium. You understand? It's up to you to discern what is right. You can watch a movie
and that's where you got to look
take good things away from it.
CIA chicken feed, and people delude themselves too, so you got to kind of weed through their self-delusions. But look up CIA chicken feed, they'll give you 80% of the truth and then steer you in a different direction the rest of the 20%. So you can get real information from suspicious people, let's say.
Right. And there's actually
at the same time, it's hard. It's a very easy bridge to burn when you distance everything that you see upon a screen from reality. I went to high school with people who were on the David Letterman show. First dude I ever bought mushrooms from played music on David Letterman. One of my best friends. That doesn't mean he's an Illuminati shill, because he's not. He's just a good effing dude from North Carolina.
Well,
it's not everything that's on there is created by some behind-the-scenes secret cabal that's going to control your mind. It's up to you to discern what is good and what is wrong.
Right.
Just
now,
like you can listen to music and hear beautiful music. Yes, ma'am.
1 second. But when you're dealing with TV these days, we know that there is a hypnotic flicker rate that they use on the masses. So therefore, there's this important political speech
Who mentioned the spirals earlier?
Literally hypnotizing the masses. So whatever they say will somehow plug into a certain part of a person's brain as truth. That's why you need to get off TV. You know what? If you can only listen to it and not look at it, then I would agree more with what you're saying.
I'm just saying different media is different,
Ed
media is
in the area of James Brown at one point, and I looked into James Brown because he had that wonderful guest on that knew him personally.
Yeah.
Well, even though his show wasn't exactly what I was researching, I looked into James Brown, and I saw that James Brown was the reason why that there wasn't a riot in Boston when there was riots going on, because they made him play a public concert on TV at night. So it shows you that these people have their false created gods, their rock stars, their movie stars, and they have to have total control of these people, because if they didn't, one big movie star could easily overthrow a city with just a few tweets.
Not only that, but they implant it into your psyche somehow.
With their false gods.
You know, I think it's kind of interesting that with Bill Cosby, I mean, if he was doing what he's been doing for a really long time, it's funny that they let it out now, almost as if he couldn't say anything about the Michael Brown thing or anything like that. Because if he would come out to say anything like that, they could always bring up the, well, or who are you to talk? And it was almost around that same time, all these videos of people getting shot by the cops and stuff was coming up, and it's almost like just to shut him up, like.
All right, guys,
like
hold on. It's 9:00, so I can't go on forever. Right? I gotta get off the air. I gotta eat, and stuff like that. I've been doing this since 5:00. So now, but I just want to sum up one thing here to kind of tie it all in, and that is, as far as the people in the media being all part of a big plot. I know a lot of people too in the media as well, and a lot of them are just gullible, and they believe what they're saying. They believe this stuff. They believe in ISIS. They believe in all this stuff they're talking about. They believe that there's Arab terrorists that hijack planes and flew them into the buildings. They believe this hook, line, and sinker.
Because you can't go against the narrative that they're spinning. They have to believe it.
No, they believe it for real because they think that's what they think. That's
what their jobs.
What
you can't go on TV like. What about that woman that was like selling marijuana? And there's a YouTube clip of her.
Right.
She's on TV on the news. She's a newscaster, and she says, I can't say this story. This is BS. I sell marijuana. And she walked off the newscast.
But the point I'm trying to make is that is because they look for gullible people. That not everyone's in on the plan. And just like we have the college systems here in America, where you grow up and you go to college, and they weed out the troublemakers, in the Ivy League colleges, and they put the people.
You can say the same thing about the police departments only hiring people that are willing to kill people. I mean, it's the same thing.
Pretty much, yeah. That is what I'm trying to say.
They have a certain profile.
And if you look at again back to the Cosby case, even with Cosby, a lot of these girls that he was targeting were these young girls who somebody is financing them. They bring them to New York and they give them acting lessons. They put them up at apartments and all this stuff like that to later on be on the TV shows and the sitcoms and all this kind of stuff. So a lot of these people are being groomed, not necessarily in on the big plot. They're being groomed on the way up, and troublemakers are being weeded out. And then if you got a real big troublemaker like, let's say, like Freddie Prinze, they get shot and killed, So there's different levels of what's going on with us. And like I said, a lot of these people you meet, are totally gullible. People behind the scenes at HLN and the Court TV and that stuff like that. And they believe in what they're saying on TV.
What a shame. What a crying shame.
What are you going to do?
Ignorance is no excuse, in my opinion. It's just too important anymore. It's just so ridiculous anymore. It's so obvious anymore. These people can't be that stupid. Are they all that vaccine affected? Give me a break. I don't buy it.
I think they want their high-powered
They're
job.
either intimidated. Yeah, they're intimidated with, now you just say this, or you don't have a job tomorrow, and these little twits just fall in line. It's sickening. There's nobody has any principle, or there's no values. I don't believe it. I don't believe it.
Well, usually.
Oh, we lost somebody? Lost everybody? Hello?
No,
not I.
No.
They can't. So it's just a little bit more sophisticated than that. And again, like I said, a lot of people are and even now, right now, I'm involved in doing a little casting for a little project, a little reality TV project. Boy, I lost everybody. Might have lost my internet connection. No, I seem to be still on the air, but we lost everything on Skype. That was weird. And the thing is, what I was saying is that I'm involved in this little casting project right now, too. And some of the people that are applying to this casting project are just incredibly gullible people who just don't have any clue of what it is to be involved in a TV project. So if I was like an Illuminati big shot guy, I could be picking these gullible people and moving them up in show business, so that you know. And when you meet a lot of these people, they're stupid. These big famous people, and they are being run and manipulated. Anyway, yeah, call dropped. Yeah, sorry guys. Anyway, listen. Good night, everybody. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be interviewing tomorrow afternoon a woman named Martha Soren. She's involved in a documentary about Paul is Dead. So that's going to be going up in the member section. Next week, I don't have a guest book, but maybe we can work this thing out with Dave and get him to come on next week. Because I'd like to get his input on this kind of stuff. I want to thank all the callers who called in. Thank you very much. And bailing me out. Because I just would have when the first caller called in, I was just trying to download one of the repeats and just play a repeat and get that going. We have that show with one of the Waco survivors coming up, and we have that show with the about the guys who broke into and stole the COINTELPRO papers from they broke into the FBI offices. Also in the members section coming up, I have one of the guys on the Epstein plane, from the movie The Usual Suspects, Kevin Spacey. I have his brother coming on, and he's going to talk about how they were both molested as kids, and that their father was a Nazi, a neo-Nazi, skinhead type guy, racist. So maybe we'll get some information on that and find out what he was doing on Epstein's plane. Out of that, I got a big show coming up in the members section with the West Memphis 3, some family members that are going to be saying some things they never said before. Also, a witness in the West Memphis 3 who testified at the trial who's never done an interview before. So we have a lot going on with that. We're also working on the Ted Gunderson shows, okay? And maybe we might start putting those up in the member section unedited. So that's about it. What we have going on that I can think of off the top of my head. Freeway Ricky Ross, we're trying to get him. Anyway, it's been a long day. Thank you all for calling in, guys. It was really a lot of fun. And we'll see you next week.